Check. Check your heading north. Line heading is 323. Check your altimeter set 3002. Correct field elevation warning. Check your barrel 10. Check your STS 1234. Check your wheel. Check your arm. South. One question. Check 5,000 fire. How far?
National Institute Standards Technology. What's going on, ODD? What's going on? Why you why you running away, bro? What's going on? What's really going on here? What's really going on here, folks? What? I know, right? Weird. Wait till I show you even more of this stuff. This is crazy. We'll get to some concave Earth evidence, but this is things that I experience in my life. You'll have to test this stuff. You'll see this stuff happening in your own life. Stuff like this. What Occam's laser? I assert the sun is a laser coming from the center. Kind of like in those, scientific. You see this rotating sphere. You see the laser in the center. That might be the case. Sphere of the fixed stars. Huh. And some very other relevant titles of songs here. Really? Arwen, what's up? Talk to me, Arwen. Oh, and Brendan Daly. Yeah. Brendan Daly and Arwen. I'm calling you guys out. Don't act like you can't find me. Don't do it. Jesus has to rise within you. Inner engineering. Hey, this guy has hair like wool and broad skin. Just saying. Whatever. What the hell do I know? But who's who in this fucking Game of Thrones? Who is who? What's going on here? These are very recent snapshots, by the way. These are all just snapshots of just like what YouTube is showing me. So I went to Saguru, exactly. I just went to his channel because I found so many parallels between his uploads and the titles of his uploads and my personal life. It's very strange. Very strange. I mean, tattoo experience, right now, police search lady's apartment with no probable cause. No probable cause. No probable cause of a crime directly relevant to my life. Tattoos experience in prison directly relevant to my life. Because of this, I say it's directly relevant to my life. Because at my other channel, I'm broadcasting my Flatpool channel because my other channel got copyright issues. And so at this channel, you'll find the reason why I find tattoos relevant is because I've been telling people no tattoos, which is what scripture will tell you. It's no tattoos, right? So after all that, there's that. Very strange stuff going on here. Kitty says, make this viral. Game of Thrones. By the way, Game of Thrones shows you the concavity of the Earth right in the intro. And then you've got these two jokers who come on, these folks obviously, Jason, Ronnie, you guys know it's concave. I get it. You guys are providing a lie for the people who deserve to fall in the trap. And I admit I was one of those people. So whatever, it's all good. But hey, why don't you just tell the fucking truth now? Because, in reality, when scripture talks about deceivers that are deceiving and being deceived, yeah. You guys are deceivers, right? And you think it's a righteous thing because you're keeping people away from the truth. But scripture actually says, thou shalt not lie. However, Rahab lied, and her whole family was spared because she helped Joshua, right? So Rahab was a liar. So what's going on? So hey, you guys, if you guys got some insight, maybe we don't even have to talk about the earth. Jason, Ronnie, you guys want to call me up? Tell me why Rahab lied and it wasn't a problem. Like she broke a commandment to lie. So I mean, we can just talk about that. Early bird, flat Earth, early bird. Hey Arwen, I remember when you were really struggling to get 1,000 subs because you really wanted that whatever your live stream chat going on or whatever. But I remember you you had some days where you were really stressed out, struggling and shit. So I remember I reached out to you and we were hoping to do like an interview or something like that. And it just wasn't working. There's things going on in my life. I was too busy at the time. And so now I'm not too busy. So if you want to come on my panel or I'll go on yours, we can have that little conversation about the earth. It can be a friendly conversation, but I really challenge your flat earth here. Really wish you would either learn the truth or start speaking it, because yeah. So hey, it's 9:00, so I can kill this little stuff like this. Yeah, Facebook is asking me if I trust them, right? And they're showing me my own live stream, and then right next to it, do you trust Facebook? Like, actually, fucking yes. Yes, I do trust Facebook because they're telling me they're dishonest, and I appreciate that. You have been zucked away again.
Look at this. Hey, Everybody, let us know your article. Look at this article. It's a recent article too. It says a simple optical phenomenon that no one's figured out yet. Nobody has figured this out. Not the brightest geniuses in cosmology have figured out what Bottlinger rings. The article goes on to say most of us have seen halos around the sun. We know why they happen. And then there are Bottlinger's rings. No one has figured out why they exist. Nobody. It's not unusual when traveling by plane to look down and see the sun reflecting off a cloud below you. This little patch of reflected brightness is called a subsun. Sometimes you'll see a circular halo around the subsun, and sometimes, without knowing it, you'll see an atmospheric mystery. Shut up. Circular halos are fairly common, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now listen up, guys. Why? Shut up, phone. Why do they say nobody's figured out Bottlinger rings? Why? I guess they don't understand there's glass in the sky. Duh. Also, that darker part, that circular darker part, that's due to a polarization effect caused by the glass sky, caused by the birefringent glass sky. But I was talking about the dark area within the circle. Because sometimes if you look up in the sky, you see this halo, this 20-degree halo. The area that's within the halo, the sky area, gets darker. The reason why it gets darker is because that's how polarizing filters work in glass lenses. And we know that the sky has a slight polarization to it because it has birefringence that was found in Libyan desert glass in Egypt. It has a weak birefringence to it. So at certain angles, the way the sun is turned upon the glass sky at certain times, it's going to darken the sky slightly. So that's why that area within the halo is dark. It's a polarizing effect. They'll never tell you that. Now, Bottlinger rings. Bottlinger rings. Let's look at some of these Bottlinger rings. Oh, look at that. You know what Bottlinger rings are? That there's glass in the sky. It's very simple.
Whoa! Oh my God! Oh my God! Double rainbow all the way across the sky. Oh my God! What does this mean?
You got the celestial sphere, all right? You got the sun glass sphere, you got the moon glass sphere, and you got the 100-kilometer glass sphere, you got the Earth, okay? We got the phi ratio curve going, got the centripetal convergence force. We also have the phi ratio going the other way, the centrifugal divergent force.
When your outside's in and your downside's up.
There's a sweet spot here. That's where phase conjugation is happening. Phase conjugation, or wave coherence, or negative refraction. There are graphite ribbons in the glass, okay? So what we have here, you understand how the rainbows actually work. It's not raindrops. It can't be raindrops. If we have a sun, let's say the sun is right over here. Okay, it's coming from the octahedron. It's shining its light. So this light beam that's going to go through this first glass, it's going to refract correctly, positively. So it's going to bend. The refraction is going to bend it slightly. So the red and the violet. You notice that the red is bent less than the violet. That's how it works. So, but since it goes through a negative refraction or reversal in polarity, I guess, it's going to refract the other way now. So we have the violet going like that, and we have the red going like that. And then once again, they resolve again at the end. So this area here, that's where the moon resides. So that's why we get the negative refraction. So it's exhibited in the secondary rainbow. The secondary rainbow, okay, if we have the initial rainbow here, let's say The initial primary rainbow, the red is going to be on the outside, right? And the violet's going to be on the inside. Terrible rainbow. But the secondary rainbow is it's less bright. This is the moon sphere. It's reversing. There's a reversal in effect. That's why we have a reversal in the secondary rainbow. It's because of the negative refraction, the phase conjugation, the wave coherence. This is where the phi ratio, where the centripetal and the centrifugal forces, they converge, and they have this harmonious play with each other. And with the graphite ribbons in the glass, it reverses everything. That's why the moon, when the moon gets farther away from us, when the moon is over here, as opposed to over here, this is the actual perigee, even though it's farther away. It will enlarge. And it will shrink when it gets closer to us. It's the exact reversal of how we view things. So, secondary rainbow is proof positive that there's glass in the sky and that there is negative refraction at play. Welcome to the inside of LS. One little correction. I have to reverse. This is the actual centripetal force. It converges upward, so I had them reversed. So this is a centrifugal divergence force. Fugal divergence. So, but they're still going to cross there. There's still going to be a sweet spot where there's wave coherence and a negative refraction. Graphite ribbons in the glass sky cause it to reverse.
I want to talk more about quadruple rainbows. There's actually two sets of double rainbows. The glass sky has been found to have birefringence in it by taking samples of the Libyan desert glass, which are remnants of a shattered glass sky that happened long ago in Egypt, the Libyan desert in Egypt. A guy called Rahman, back in 1950, he found that it has weak birefringence. Now, birefringence, as I mentioned before, is when the light ray goes through a crystal or glass medium and it splits. Okay, it has the ordinary ray and then it has this extraordinary ray. They call it an ordinary and an extraordinary. The ordinary ray is going parallel. It's going perpendicular to the axis. And then the extraordinary is going slightly parallel, not quite parallel, but almost. And so that's what causes this shift. You'll notice here in the quadruple rainbow, there are four bows, okay? You have the ordinary bow and the other secondary part of the ordinary bow, and then you have the extraordinary bow and the secondary part of the extraordinary bow. And what I believe is that the ordinary bow, the glass sky, because it has a top and a bottom surface to it, it actually casts at certain angles. It casts two bows. Normally, you only see the main rainbow. However, sometimes at different angles in sunlight, it's projected onto the water vapor in the sky. The water vapor is not the source of the rainbow. It's the actual white light of the sun being dispersed through the glass sky. It's breaking up into the spectrum. That's why it's bowed in the first place. It's actually more correctly called a sun bow, not really a rainbow. It's just like if you hold a flashlight to water vapor, you hold a flashlight to a white wall. Okay, the wall is not creating the rainbow. It's actually the light, the dispersed light of the lens of the flashlight. So the lens in the sky is dispersing the light, is casting it onto the reflected water vapor. So that's why we have rainbows. The rainbows were created after the flood. Genesis 9:13 says, when you see the rainbow, is a promise that the earth won't be flooded again, because the rainbow is a result of the glass sky, which compressed the atmosphere and pushed the waters down. It's all scientific. This has been suppressed big time, and now it's finally being out in the open. Now this is so easy to understand. Okay, by refringence.
Okay, why rainbows get clipped? A flat earther was asking me that question. I'll leave him nameless out of dignity. I don't want to shame him too much. Flat earthers don't understand, as well as convex earthers, they don't understand that light bends. Light has been proven to bend. You can go out and do your own tests and realize. I refer back to Wild Heretic's article about the bending of light, where Wilhelm Martin studied the curvature of light. So light is bending within the earth. Okay, I made a previous graphic about rainbows. I didn't explain why they clipped. I'm going to do that now. So the sunlight is being bent around, it's being dispersed through the glass sky, and it's being projected. Okay, it gets dispersed, it gets polarized. So going in to illustrate it here, I made another graphic showing. Okay, so here's the sun here. It's approaching sunset. Let's say it's 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and it projects different, well, let's say, different columns of light from wherever you are, whatever vantage point you are. Let's say, like if you're over here, you're going to see the sun ring, the direct sun right over there. So if you're way over here, more extreme to the sun, you are going to see the rainbow or the sunbow. It's actually called this, it's really a sunbow. When you are in between the clouds and the sunlight, right? So the reason why you're only seeing a partial bow is because the sunlight comes around. It cannot bend enough at ground level, so it gets clipped like that. However, if you rise up higher, let's say in an airplane at that same vertical height, you will see the full sunbow. And go back here, and I can show you. See, once the light gets past the glass, it's going to be dispersed, and it's going to be polarized. So if you're in an airplane, you've seen this before, pictures of this. It projects the shadow of the plane, and there's a rainbow or a glory or a sunbow circling the shadow of the plane. That's because the plane is between the sunlight and the cloud, and obviously it's bathed within the dispersed light. So that's the reason why rainbows get clipped like that. Okay. Are you heliocentric gravitational?
I'm looking at you through the glass. Don't know how much time has passed. Oh God, it feels like forever. But no one ever tells you that forever feels like home. Sitting all alone inside your head.
Good evening, folks. I do have more revelation to present to you this evening, or this morning if you're watching. And honestly, this is all falling into place. If you've been keeping watch on my videos, you'll understand how I resolve the heavens, how the refraction creates the inversion. I simulated that in 3D. How the phi ratio, the golden mean, plays into the actual shape of the interior celestial glass spheres within the earth, their sizes, how the sun and the moon orbit within those spheres, how the planets operate. And since I've been on the topic of glass and refraction, of the 4 concentric glass spheres, we have the 100-kilometer glass sphere. Then higher we have what I call the moon sphere. Then higher still, or smaller still, we have the sun sphere. And then finally we have the celestial sphere, where the stars are contained and the celestial ocean is contained, where the octahedron resides. And I had to figure out, it was trial and error, working with refraction in 3D, placing the sun and the moon in their appropriate spheres. Excuse me, I'm really tired right now. And try to figure out the size relationship, the amount of index of refraction for each sphere. It was tricky, and I resolved it. I finally figured it out, and it had to actually employ a negative refraction for one of the spheres. And now, for the first time in the public circle, you guys are being educated. This disclosure is big. I mean, for the longest time, we've wondered why we have this association of lunacy with the moon, lunatic, loony. And I can tell you right now, there's a very good reason for that. That is because the moon lies to us. The moon resides in its own glass sphere outside of the sun sphere, which also includes the planets. The planets and the sun share the same sphere, that area, just outside the celestial sphere. But then there's another wall of glass or sphere of glass, and then there's the moon section. And that interior of that section, there's an inverse scale relationship at play with proximity. Meaning, you know how we see the apogee and the perigee of the moon. When the moon is really big, we call it the perigee because it's supposedly closer to us. You see where I'm going with this? It's the exact opposite. When the moon is closest to us, it appears the smallest in the sky. When the moon is farthest away from us, in other words, when the moon is closer toward the center, it appears largest. That has to do with the negative refraction within that moon sphere. I'll show you that. And so now I have to edit my moon video that I created 2 years ago. I have to actually flip-flop the perigee and the apogee. And then we have to understand how the tides are actually being created now. It's not because the moon is closer to the Earth that it affects the tides more. It's actually that the moon is closer to the center and it's pulling with it the 100-kilometer glass sphere, and that's what's causing the relief. That's what's causing the tides. And so I can pretty much, I'm like 95% certain this is how it's working. This is how it's situated. And also too, how I played around with the scale of those two interior glass spheres, the moon sphere and the sun sphere, fit perfectly with the phi ratio curve. Perfectly. So I think I'll just show you that right now. It's pretty amazing. Let me pull up my screen share. I'm nearsighted. I got my contacts out. I'm going to have to look really close at the screen here. 1 second here. Bear with me. Thought about like doing a little edit compilation, but I think it's just better if we do it on the fly. At least most of it. Okay. Let's pull that up. As you see, I altered my phi ratio graphic slightly, and you see the blue sphere and the blue section. That is the moon sphere, and the yellow section, that is the sun and planet sphere. And look how they are proportional to the phi curve ratio. I mean, it's perfect. You got the little interior of the phi curly Q going right in line with that for the moon sphere, and then you got the actual convergence of the spiral going right through the sun sphere, or almost. It's probably going right through, but I just haven't fine-tuned my calculations. But I can almost guarantee you it's going right through it. So I had to, here's the sun over here. It's about, well, I have it roughly, it's a little bit closer to the celestial sphere from the center. And then I put the moon right here. And the moon is about in the middle of its own little sphere. So what you have to realize, or what I had to realize, because I made I measured out the sun. The sun, and I'm not quite. I haven't really solidified the exact width of the sun. It's about 9 miles, I would say, maybe a little bit bigger, or smaller. But obviously, the planets are going to be considerably smaller than 9 miles. When we see the transit over the sun, we realize that wow, they're pretty small, pretty small indeed. So we have room, but then we also have and so here's my orbit of the planet video. Here it is. Or this is better yet. I'll show the glass spheres again. So we have these 2 glass spheres along with the celestial sphere and, of course, the 100-kilometer sphere. We have 4 spheres that create the cloaking sometimes that the moon shows us when it's part of the darkened part is cloaked and we can actually see a star behind it. But then the planets, and these are all mapped out according to stellarium coordinates, and they're all working perfectly. And I included the yellow line, the glass spheres, and they all work out fine. See, this zone here with the sun and the planets, actually it's this whole zone, this whole glass zone, it has positive refraction. So if an object is closer to the glass or closer to the viewer, it's going to enlarge. If it's farther away, it's going to shrink. It's going to do this drastically because of the refraction in this zone. This is the moon zone. It has negative refraction, and so it's going to do the exact opposite. When the moon goes toward the center, it's going to enlarge. And when it goes toward the glass, it's going to shrink. So the moon lies to us. That is the big mystery of the moon. That and also the moon illusion, how it's upside down at the horizon. It's literally viewed inverted at the horizon. So I have to redo my moon video. I have to flip-flop the perigee and the apogee. So when the moon is actually close to the Earth, it's the apogee. It's the apogee in physical placement. You can call it the perigee because it looks bigger, but it's really it's farther away from the Earth. And so how the tides work, the tides are simply going to be lifting the 100-kilometer glass sky with the moon as it's drawn to the center. Let's see if I can find that really quick. There we go. So, and also this video is 2 years old, and I got to put the moon and the sun closer to the center. And, my model is more streamlined now. But so when the moon gets drawn closer to the center, right, it appears bigger, but it's going to draw with it the glass sky because there's magnetite in the glass. And the moon has it's very slight, but there's a slight magnetic field to it. So whatever the case is, that when the moon goes to the center, the whole glass sphere goes to the center or rises. And so that causes the relief in the pressure. And that's what causes the tides, because we get high tides during a big moon. I'm not going to say perigee or apogee. I don't want to confuse you. We get high tides during a big moon, during a super moon, and even though the moon is farther away from us. Okay, so this is a huge revelation that's being disclosed to you. When I talked about the 22 and the 46-degree halos, that was, I put that video on private because it really doesn't matter. You can have whatever size halo. There's nothing special about that intersection. It makes much more sense for these glass spheres to be pulled in to actually conform to the phi spiral there and the phi spiral where it converges. So I brought in the 2 interior glass spheres, and it works perfectly with refraction and with the negative refraction zone of the moon sphere. So I think that's all I wanted to cover right now. But this is an extremely crucial revelation for you guys to understand what's going on. So, like I said before, I did a test orbit of Venus. Now, obviously, this is how the orbits work if you were to view one frame at the same time every day, every 24 hours. In reality, the planets are going to be moving counterclockwise. And so what I did, this is just to show the retrograde motion of the planets, which is not a literal going backwards. It's just simply the planets are slowing down or speeding up relative to the sun or to the celestial sphere. And that's what actually causes the apparent retrograde. It still isn't apparent retrograde, even though the Earth is not spinning, but it's only apparent because in all actuality, all the planets are orbiting counterclockwise from east to west, only varying in velocity. And so if you take a frame at the same time every day, you're going to track this backwards retrograde motion to it. But they're all fitting within the truncated orbit behind the sun, or like in Venus and Mercury's case, in front of it. Now you might ask yourself, well, if the moon is only behind one glass sphere, why would we get sometimes a double halo from a full moon, just as we do from the sun, moon? Well, think about that. Think about what I've told you before, how the direction of light hits the moon. It curves around back. Remember, the moon is not self-luminous. It's receiving sunlight from the sun. It's receiving reflected sunlight. So if we go to my graphic here, and we start it back up here at the top, where the sun is emanating its light, and it's going around both sides, or more like in a 3D sense, more of a toroidal shape. But it's converging here, the Gegenschein, and the direction of the light is it's going to be hitting both glass spheres. See that? Interesting too, if there is some kind of wave cancellation in this zone, in this negative zone, and the light is hitting it like that, it's quite possible that this is how we get the darkness funnel in this zone here, where the light cancels out, the wave cancellation cancels out. We still get the illumination of the halo, and I guess around the edges of that, we would still get the illumination of the second halo as well. But this area, I believe, is the void, is the darkness funnel. But keep that in mind as well. Also, a couple of years ago, I made this video about negative refraction of the glass sky in the Libyan desert glass. They have found graphite ribbons, 50 to 50 nanometers thick. Graphite is a natural material, and graphene is a man-made metamaterial. Both can create negative refraction. So that's very interesting as well. Also check out this 3D simulation that I made of an octahedron with volumetric lighting and these openings at the seams of these diamond panels. So the light is escaping at the seams and it's creating this wave interference. And so we have this cancellation zone, I guess, if you want to call it. Possibly that could be at play as well. I mean, that's how we're getting bending light in the first place. Light is in the earth. It's in a container. It's constrained. It's confined. It's being affected by the ether, by the wave cancellation. I mean, normally, yeah, sure. If light is not affected by some kind of containing object or medium, it would be straight. But light, I mean, the universe is only 8,000 miles wide. So keep that in mind as well. So there you go. Big news, guys. And so, yeah, looks like I got to update my moon video. Fun. All right. Thanks for watching. And now you understand why the moon lies and why the moon is loony. cellular concave Earth. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Hi guys, this is an extemporaneous attempt off the cuff where I'm going to actually attempt to elaborate a little bit more about the so-called moon terminator illusion, of which I recorded a video previously about a month ago where I was criticizing Vsauce for inaccurately explaining why that is happening. I'll show you that video here. He says it's due to foreshortening. He says it's due to the camera dolly effect, but he's wrong. The reason why he's wrong is because I went into 3D and I simulated a heliocentric version of the sun being 93 million miles away and the moon being 238,000 miles away, and showing that it doesn't matter how far away the moon is, how far away the sun is in the sky. If you simply draw a straight line from the sun to the moon, it will always be perpendicular to the terminator of the moon. Definition of the moon terminator illusion is when the terminator line of the moon is not perpendicular to the sun, therefore implying that there's some kind of curvature to the light, or what they say is just an illusion, is actually not an illusion. It is actually curving. The light is actually curving, but it's an inversion of the curvature. Go back here to the light wave. And I've made this video before where I morphed the sky. So what we see in the sky above our heads, it gives the illusion that there's a dome above us, and that all has to do with the inversion of the curvature of the light. And so you see this bowed line going from the sun to the moon here, and that is actually how we perceive the light hitting the moon. It's hitting it on a curve. But if I were to invert the sky, morph it out like this, in all actuality, this is how we actually would see it if we did not detect light being curved. If light were straight, in other words, we would see the edge of the celestial sphere. I've mentioned this before. We would see the other side of the earth. We would see that the sun and moon are actually not even full spheres. They're only half spheres. I explained that before too. But because of the way the sky just wraps around and it develops our perception like that, this is how we see it, and we only see the front sides of the sun and the moon, and there's not going to be a straight perpendicular axis of the terminator from the sun, and so they don't understand it. They can't figure it out, and their definition of why it is happening falls short. It just doesn't work that way. And then there's the moon illusion itself, which is different than the moon terminator illusion. Now, the moon illusion is when we see the moon really big at the horizon, right? And to this day, people still can't figure it out. This is Donald Simonek's webpage, and he goes into trying to figure it out. It's still an unsolved mystery. And there's a talk about the Ponzo effect, where like closer objects will cause your eye to think that an object is smaller than it actually is. If something is like further away in the distance, if two objects having the same size, the objects that are in the vicinity of that object are going to actually create an illusion of how we perceive that angular size to be. But then also, again, the moon illusion is not, there's not a difference in size. If you just take a time-lapsed photograph of the moon, you can see that it's virtually the same angular diameter
when it's up in the sky as opposed to when it's at the horizon. And so what's going on? Simic talks about, or other people too as well, there is one kind of interesting feature here about this moon illusion, and that is that when you bend down, upside down, and you look at the moon through your legs, you're mooning the moon, that illusion of the moon appearing bigger actually goes away. It says familiar objects in the field of view may become useless at a distance references because of the unfamiliar appearance when viewed upside down, or the illusion may have something to do with our inner ear's balance mechanism that tells us whether the head is upright or upside down. Now, if you understand my teachings before, where I actually tell you the sun and the moon actually are upside down. Okay, this diagram before I showed you, like if you're standing inside the concave cellular earth, you're over here and you're looking laterally across like that at the sun or the moon, your perception will think that it's over here. In all actuality, the sun is going to be way up over here. So there's an inversion. You see, you're seeing the top of the sun over here first at sunrise, but it's actually the bottom of the sun that appears first. So there is an actual inversion to the sun and the moon. And so I think that's really a good indication that the moon is upside down at the horizon. Same with the sun, same with the stars. Same with, I made a video before, so the sky is upside down. When objects appear further away, there's like an inversion threshold that happens. And we see distant objects as upside down. It looks like packet trails are descending. And it all has to do with the curvature of light and our perception. This is a graphic I made before about the propagation of light. The sun over here looking top down inside the cellular earth. The sun is going to emanate its light and it's going to hit the moon over here, like the moon is at 90 degrees away from the sun. And so when we see it in the sky like that, if we were just to draw a line straight from the sun to the moon, it wouldn't, obviously the terminator is not perpendicular. You have to reach it on a curve like that. And that is because light is bending, and you can detect the curvature of light from distant objects, just like you can detect it when you see a comet's tail. A comet's tail is a good indicator that light is definitely bending. Now it's splitting up like that because we're viewing the comet through a glass sky, which has a weak birefringence quality to it, which means it actually splits up the image. It's a double refracted image that projects on like that. And it will split up the colors because red has a lower index of refraction than blue. And so it's going to split up like that. But a comet is a dead giveaway, telltale indicator of light actually bending within the earth. And so you don't need to try to solve it with all these methods of basing your assumptions on a heliocentric straight light paradigm Earth. If you understand light bends, if you understand that the moon and the sun are actually upside down at the horizon, these things just, they fade away. So you see this graphic before, light is bending like that. So we see the sun, we see the bottom of the sun first at sunrise, even though it appears that we see the top of the sun. So, yeah, I guess that's all I wanted to talk about. Well, that's what's going on. The sky morphs. Our perception of the sky is morphed. So, version of this. Now I just have a half of a sky here, but actually it would be a full sphere. But this is reality. Sunlight is bending around, it's hitting the moon. Actually, the moon will probably be a little bit further away. But this is how we perceive it, like that. Okay. Just understand, cell Earth is reality. Light has been proven to bend over and over again. And even atmospheric refraction, it would actually, their explanation of atmospheric refraction is completely reversed. I'll show you. They will give you the diagram of atmospheric refraction like this. Okay. They're on a convex Earth, and they have the observer over here. And they say that you would see the sun 2 minutes before it actually rises. But I went in and I modeled this. Okay, I created a glass sphere around a convex Earth, and what it showed was the exact opposite. Okay. In reality, if this were the case, it would be flipped. Okay, it would be the sun would actually be here, but it would appear here. You know what I'm saying? Think about that. Play this. See, this side is with refraction, and that side is without refraction. The geometry has not changed. So it's a complete violation of their explanation of atmospheric refraction. And also the fact is the refractive index of air is so negligible. It's like 1.000268 or something like that. That's just nowhere near enough refraction to cause the sun to be lifted like that. And I mentioned how it can be lifted easily with glass in the sky. You see this one before I actually show. I'm just holding up a bowl over a light source, over a flashlight, and it's lifting the image and it's squishing it as well. And so this, once again, this simulation is over a convex ball. So if we were to have the atmosphere have like a glass lens, from this vantage point, from the sun's vantage point, it's a convex lens, so it's going to be bending it down. So problem for heliocentrism, it's dead, it doesn't work. And concave Earth, cell Earth reality is the only option. With
go with a plane inside the Earth, you're going to have to tilt that up more. Now that would make no sense whatsoever if you're trying to eliminate the drag. You would want to tilt it down. You would want to get it as level as possible, but you're simply running out of real estate. So they're hiding this information from you. It's the pact. It's the pilot pact. It's the AAPP, the Australian Aviation Pilot Pact, or the American Aviation Pilot Pact. Never a straight answer. Oh, is it the fuselage that's tilting up, or is it the wings that are tilting up? Is the Concorde nosing down the faster it goes, or is it tilting up the faster it goes? Documentation would show that it's tilting up the faster you go. Welcome to Cell Earth Reality. Thanks for watching.
Are you the pilot? Oh, okay. Am I allowed to say hi? Hey, I just want to say thanks for the smooth flight. Alright. I did have one question. Is there like a specific angle of downward tilt you have to fly at to 3 degrees? 3 degrees for the curvature of the Earth? Oh, for the Earth? Because no, we just fly over the troposphere. Really? Yeah. Do you have to keep like kind of going down because? No, you actually have to nose up. It flies.
What you talking about?
It flies.
What you talking about? What you talking about?
What the hell are you talking about?
On the flat Earth, it made a lot of sense. Have you looked into it? Which one? I was reading a lot of stuff on the flat Earth. Okay, yeah. True. It's true. Yeah. True. It's true.
What you talking about?
Yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. All right. God bless, brother. All right. Have a good one.
He's like, yeah, that's true. Yeah, sure. You know, that pilot knows he ain't admitting to anything real.
You guys want some more proof that the moon is behind glass? Give you some. If you'll notice, if you listen to the Scientism Tarts, Neil deGrasse, whoever, they'll tell you about the moon. They'll say it's an oblate spheroid. Oblate spheroid. It's flattened, slightly flattened. Very, very interesting. Forget what your eye may tell you about a perfect full moon hanging in the sky. Researchers say it's not a perfect circle, but in fact slightly flattened. And it even got bulges on its side. Another one. Myth. Well, they give you the myths about the moon. Is the moon perfectly round? To the eye, the moon appears round, and it's natural to assume that it is actually spherical in shape, with every point on its surface equidistant from the center, like a big ball. Not so. The shape of the moon is that of an oblate spheroid, meaning it has the shape of a ball that is slightly flattened. Slightly flattened. Interesting. Okay. Let's check it out behind glass with refraction. Now, there's my moon, okay? I put these dark bands around the moon to help you understand or give you a better understanding of the sphericity involved with the moon. The same thing with the sun. Okay. So I brought that through my modeler my layout version of Lightwave here. And so I toggle refraction, no refraction. You notice it's flatter with the refraction, don't you? Yeah, it is. Okay, what makes more sense? That the moon is not perfectly spherical, and like Neil says, it's an oblate spheroid that's slightly flattened, or we're looking at it through the glass. And the refractive index, the negative refractive index flattens it. What makes more sense? Let's check something else out as well with the moon here. Let me go back to my screen. And in Illustrator, if you watched my previous video of the moon phases, I added an extra moon here that's right next to the darkness funnel, this moon right here. And how you see it's not perfect. Like I have my termination line going right here. So this little wedge of the moon is not illuminated. This turns out to be a 17-degree angle from here to here, 17 degrees. And so when we view a full moon, I mean, even the heliocentrist will say that, you can't view a perfect full moon because of the, quote, shadow of the earth, right? It's blocking. Otherwise, it would be a perfect full moon, but it's not. So if we go back here. Okay. So I cut a 17-degree angle wedge. So it's this purple wedge here that you see. And so if you bring that into Lightwave, obviously you're going to get, is this without refraction? It's virtually the same thing. Yeah, this is without refraction. So we'll bring it back with refraction and 400 millimeters. Yeah. So, and this is not going to be a hard edge. It's going to be feathered basically. And so if you look at some pictures of full moons, you'll see that you're going to get a slight shading to one side. You see how the craters are more defined? That's supposedly a full moon. This is not a full moon, but you see where I'm getting. So there's going to be that slight shading. So that's the result. But more importantly was my first point being that the reason why we observe the moon as slightly flattened is because we're looking at it through the glass. Look at that. Slightly flattened. Interesting. Hi guys, this is just a casual little brush up about concave Earth reality. I'm going to talk a little bit about the moon. If you watched Crow 777's video and about the moon, where he talks about, well, the moon doesn't seem naturally illuminated like a sphere, and normally that's a good reason to believe that it's, well, you might think it's not round, not spherical, but it is spherical. We do see the round shadow on the moon. The problem lies with your understanding of the shape of the Earth and how light works within the Earth. I say within the Earth because, as you know, I advocate a concave Earth. And since the moon in the concave Earth model is on the opposite side of the sun, which is on the opposite side of the celestial sphere, we see that the moon gets hit from both sides. See, it's illuminated from this side and from this side. When it's full, when it's opposite the sun like that, it's getting a double whammy illumination. And that is what is preventing us from understanding or seeing any sphericity, any graduated shadows of the moon. You understand what I'm saying there? Now, if it enters in this darkness funnel, it gets eclipsed. But north and south of that funnel, it will get hit from both sides. A full moon. That's why we don't see the shading of the moon. It only works in the concave Earth, guys. But we know, we can tell by the shadow, by the terminator of the moon, that it is definitely round. The front side, anyway. If you watch my videos, you understand that the moon is only a half sphere, and it's part of, at one time, a full sphere when it was together with the sun. I believe the sun and the moon were at one time one hollow sphere, and they bifurcated, and now they are two half spheres where the sun gets the light. The sun gets the energy from the pyramid. The moon has to receive its light from the sun, and it's receiving it from the light from the sun, I believe, with this negative polarity that's going on, and that's why moonlight is much different than sunlight, but it's still being reflected from the sun. So that is why the moon does not appear to illuminate like a sphere. At least, see, I'm looking. This is a top-down view of a cutaway of the concave Earth. So here's the sun. The sun illuminates, and it hits the moon when it's full from both sides. That's why we don't get the shading. Understand? Also, too, I want to talk about the topic of radar came into. Okay, radar astronomy supposedly predicts these huge, prodigious distances of planets, of asteroids, of the moon, of the sun. Well, no, that's not the case. Radar slows down when it goes through ice. And within this model, within reality, there is a glass sky at 100 kilometers high with ice attached to it. So the ice is going to slow down the radar considerably, and the radar scientists funded by the National Science Foundation are going to lie to you about the distances as well. And so anything they tell you is For one, it's skewed by the ice and multiple concentric glass spheres that will also slow it down. And they will also lie to you about what's going on. But you're living in the concave Earth. And the moon is real. I mentioned this before, that sometimes, a flat earther might bring up that, well, sometimes we see a star that's passing over the dark side of the moon. That is because of the concentric glass spheres. They exhibit a cloaking effect at certain times where the moon passes over a value threshold, and that part of the moon will become invisible. So that is what's going on. The glass skies, they flatten out, they invert the celestial sphere. They flatten out your understanding and compresses it so you can view the planets, you can view the retrograde from any latitude of the Earth, and it will not appear to change in parallax versus what's behind it or its trajectory because of the glass, the refraction, the negative refraction of the glass.
During a full moon, there's a question. It appears kind of as flat as tubes. I mean, it's not flat because we see the Terminator line. That's where a lot of flat earthers stumble. They try to say, "Oh yeah, the moon is flat. It's self-luminous." Well, no. There's a point I didn't bring up. I should have brought it before, but I just looked into it right now. It's called Lambertian reflectance. Or Lambertian reflectance is the property that defines an ideal matte or diffusely reflecting surface. The apparent brightness of a Lambertian surface is to an observer is the same regardless of the observer's angle of view. Now, this is what they're trying to tell you why it appears flat, and they're gonna compare it to a piece of paper. Like a piece of paper has a Lambertian surface, meaning there's not much specularity to it. There's not much. It's like an even isotropic reflectance, and so they're gonna try to say that, well, yeah, even though the moon is spherical, it's not gonna, if I were to make this into a sphere. I'm trying to tell you that you're still not going to be able to see gradation to the sides of it, which is untrue. It's not true. And the biggest problem they fail to realize that if you illuminate a spherical object, it will show gradation. It doesn't matter how Lambert the surface is, how diffuse the surface is, you're going to see gradation to it. Unless that object is being flooded by light that is not coming from one particular point, which is the case. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Share the screen. Okay, what I did was, remember, I don't know if you watched that video where I displayed an image of a rendering I made in 3D of two glass spheres with caustics. There's a caustic anomaly in 3D. And what it will do, it will generate the caustic anomalies of the glass. And so basically, of the light hitting the glass. And basically, what's going to happen when a light source hits a glass surface, a curved surface like that, that's reflecting, it's going to converge, it's going to generate more interference as it converges around. And so it's going to create these little hot spots throughout the contour of the interior of the glass. And so this here, I have a celestial sphere which has no reflectance to it. And I have my sun at the top here. And I have one glass sphere inside of a larger glass sphere. And there's no light source on the bottom. The light that we're picking up on the bottom is just simply light that's being reflected around and wrapped around there. And that's why we get the opposite side of the celestial sphere being illuminated. But if you look at this area here, obviously, this is where, in my model, in the correct model, this is where a full moon would happen. Now, this sphere is what I consider the moon sphere. So this sphere is the sun sphere, but still we're getting a lot of illumination here that is anti-solar.
So this area here is being flooded with light. Understand? So it's not because the lunar surface is Lambertian. It's because it's being flooded with light. So if I overlaid that caustic image over my diagram here, if we had the moon here in the bottom, anywhere within this region, it's going to be flooded. It's not going to be coming from one individual single point source of light. You know what I mean? So that's why we get the flooding of the light, which causes it to appear flat, like this moon right here in 3D. Okay, right now I have 4 lights that are flooding this moon, and it's causing it to appear flat. I talked about how before, you know, on the sides of the moon, we're not getting the darkness, we're not getting the gradation, so it causes it to appear flat along with the refraction. There's a negative refractive glass entity covering the moon. For the most part, it's not because the moon is Lambertian that it's causing it to appear flat. Now just think about that for a minute. Okay? The sun, in a heliocentric model, the sun is hitting the moon. It doesn't matter. It's one light source. It's one point light source. So let me turn off 3 of these 4 lights that I have on the screen here. Okay, just gonna 0 intensity. 0, 0, 0. And then we're going to boost up the intensity of the single light source, which is directed exactly in front of it. Okay, that's what we would see in a heliocentric model if there was one point light source coming from the sun hitting the moon. You see the gradation all around the edges of the moon like that. That's not what we see, is it? That's because the light is being flooded around the anti-solar region or illumination zone within the concavity of the Earth behind the glass. This has to do with glass spheres. This has to do with bending light. This has to do with the way in which the light emanates and hits the moon. So it's not because it's Lambertian heliocentrist. I talked about how the negative refraction actually inverts the apogee and the perigee. Understand that the moon is above, well, the moon is going to be above 2 glass spheres, one at 100 kilometers, one at the negative refractive glass sphere that's directly in front of it. And so, you know, we pick up, you know, any amateur astronomer or any honest astronomer, when they view the moon, craters of the moon, they're going to pick up chromatic aberration. That's a definite sign, a telltale indicator that you're seeing it behind glass. You're going to get distortion of the craters, like if you zoom into a crater really close, like a specific region of the moon, and throughout the course of the day, or even throughout the course of a few days, there's going to be a change and distortion of the actual surface. That's because you're going to get behind glass at different angles throughout the day or throughout each different day. There we go. So that is a more realistic depiction of how we're viewing the moon as it's being flooded within the illumination zone. And so it's killing the dimensionality of it. It's creating flat-like appearance. Doesn't mean the moon is flat, obviously. Okay, the selenelion. I actually uploaded a video about this just recently, and then I realized that I had to correct the refraction. And so I'm going to show you that right now. The selenelion is a term in which they use to describe the phenomenon when the sun and the moon are above the horizon during a lunar eclipse. How can that be happening? They will tell you it's because of atmospheric refraction. However, within a standard conventional heliocentric model, there is not enough atmospheric refraction to compensate for the amount of lift of the sun and the moon. So we see them simultaneously below the horizon. So what is going on here? They actually avoid the answer to that. It's actually Mr. Rich from Mr. Thrive, Mr. Thrive and Survive. I left a comment on his video where he tries to tell you what they're doing. He's right about what they're doing. They are not explaining
the selenelion. They're avoiding the question and trying to replace it and distract you with their circus music. And so, but however, Mr. Rich fails because he doesn't understand that a lunar eclipse cannot possibly work. They can't, you can't have that working within flat Earth theory. There is no object to eclipse the moon. There is a good reason to believe that it works within a concave Earth model. Actually, it's the only model that correctly describes a lunar eclipse because of the Gegenschein. If you watch my videos before about the Gegenschein, you will understand that how can, within a standard conventional heliocentric model, how can there be a anti-solar illumination point right where there should be darkness, right where there should be the Earth's shadow? So it doesn't work. So the only answer and explanation to the lunar eclipse is within the concave Earth model with bending light. And so Mr. Rich, he deletes my comments, so I screen capped this. I said, this is a previous illustration I made showing the propagation of light within the concave Earth. I showed you how the lunar phases happen. And so what I did was I simply show you how these glass skies, these concentric layers of glass skies, actually refracting the light and causing the lift that is happening. So these red curved lines are the refraction lines, and the blue lines, the faded blue object there, that is giving you a reference of how it would be without refraction. It would be like a symmetrical display or array of light, like this right here. You see that the top half and the bottom half are perfectly horizontally symmetrical. Okay, now if I turn on the refraction, you will see that this bottom portion gets smaller than the top portion, like that. So we're getting this lift. That is why we see the sun before actual sunrise. Okay, and we actually have sunset before the sun goes down. That is why this is happening, because of the glass concentric layers in the sky that are lifting the sun and the moon. And so this is the only reason why the selenelion can work. It's within the concave Earth, within the glass skies, and the bending light and the refraction involved. So if you go back, I'll show you the video I made about that a while ago, just holding up a glass bowl. Turn off the audio here. Let's get a bigger picture of that. And you will see how this happens. Very simple to understand. See that? See the lift going on like that? It's not only lifting it, but it's squishing it as well. It's not only lifting it, the glass. That is why, that's the accurate reason, explanation why the sun gets lifted like that and squished, and the moon does as well. So the selenelion is finally accurately explained with the correct model of the universe, with the glass skies, with the concave Earth, with the bending light, and with the refraction involved. That's the only way you can get that significant amount of lift. So the observer's down here, and we're seeing the moon and the sun simultaneously, even though they are anti-solar. Okay, so see these top little half spheres? That would be if there was no refraction and they were perfectly anti-solar like that. But since we get the refraction from the concentric glass skies, it's going to lift it like that, and there's going to be an imbalance in symmetry horizontally from the bottom versus the top like that. So that's the same reason why from below the equator, say at 15, 20 degrees south latitude, you can see during, with a time-lapse photography, that you see the star trails, you can actually see Polaris spinning like that because of the glass skies. That's the main reason. So it's solved. So this is unprecedented. You've never heard the reason why the selenelion happens. It's all happening because light is bending within the concave Earth. And there are glass skies who can make straight that which God has made bent.
All right, another solved mystery which conventional bullshit science cannot explain to you accurately because they don't understand that we're living inside the concave
cellular Earth, and there is a glass sky above us. And there's probably a couple glass spheres within the Earth. Blood red moons. Blood red moons. Why do we see blood red moons? This is what they'll tell you. Bullshit, of course. They're going to tell you that the atmosphere alone, just the air in the atmosphere and the decreasing density of the atmosphere as you get up, or whatever they say here, is going to cause the redness that we see on a blood red lunar eclipse moon, which is bullshit. Let's see, what do they say here? There is circular ring around Earth, the ring of our atmosphere through which the sun rays pass. Sunlight is composed of a range of frequencies. As sunlight passes through our atmosphere, the green to violet portion of the light spectrum is essentially filtered out. The same effect, by the way, is what makes our sky blue during the day. Meanwhile, the reddish portion of the spectrum is least affected. Well, see, they don't simply understand. When you're looking through glass prisms, you're going to get the dividing up of the light into the colors. And which color, which end of the spectrum is going to be bent the least? That would be the red end. The red end, red is about 700 nanometers, 730 or 80 or something like that. It's not going to be as refracted as much as the other end. The violet end of the spectrum will be like 400 nanometers. So red is not going to be refracted as much as the other colors when light is shining through glass. Okay, that's all you have to know. So I go into Illustrator here, and I kind of revise my propagation of light in the Earth diagram, where I have the sunlight on the top, emanating around like that. We have this apple zone area of illumination, and it creates, on the other side, a convergence, the Gegenschein, the anti-solar illumination. I call it the darkness funnel, where it leaves a void, a funnel-shaped void area, which is circular when looked at it straight on. So we have this moon right here, right? It's passing through that area during the equinoxes when it's not above or below that funnel. It's going to be filtered out because look at the red. See, the red is bending the least out of all the colors. Get the whole spectrum here. So on the opposite end of the spectrum, the violet and the blues, they're going to bend a lot more than the reds. Or not a lot more, but significantly enough to where you're not going to see them. They're going to be knocked out. So we have our moon here, and we just simply rotate it around the center there. And that's how we get the redness. This is, ladies and gentlemen, this is like, this stuff has been hidden for millennia because they didn't understand concave Earth, glass sky, visual optics that are created with glass. Look at that. We just solved why the moon turns red during a lunar eclipse. Okay. What we're looking at, obviously, is a moon in front of the sun with background stars. Now, if I go to my top view here, I'm going to show you what's going on. Okay. Concave Earth, glass skies. You'll notice this yellow glass sphere is surrounding the celestial sphere, the inner sphere there, and then we have the moon sphere, and then we have this the largest of the glass spheres, and they're all have indexes of refraction. At least one has a negative index of refraction. And you'll see this yellow glass sphere. Now imagine if my camera was, it is actually, it's down at the bottom. Let's put it up here. Camera's down there at the bottom, okay. And I got a little sun. That's right over here.
There's my sun. It's behind the sun glass sphere, and then the moon is right in front of it. The moon is, or right below it. There's the moon. Okay, so the camera's pointing straight at the sun-moon alignment. And what is going on? I was doing a little bit of fiddling around with eclipses in 3D, and what is happening is that because the sun is obviously it's hot, it's going to generate heat and it's going to create thermal expansion of the glass sphere that it's behind. And so it's going to create a bulging. And so let's get that bulging. Right now I have the bulge on the opposite side. You see at the top there's a little bulge. And so if I turn that around, rotate it, so it's directly in front of the sun. Now the bulge is right in front of the sun over here. And now we can look through with our camera with the refraction turned on. There's a refraction. Now it's off. Now it's on. So we're always looking at the sun and the moon through glass with refraction. That bulge is actually going to displace the background stars, and that's exactly what they observed, Eddington and Einstein, is that the background stars were displaced as if looking through a glass. Wine glass, yeah, that's the ticket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate that glass sphere so it's behind again, so we're not looking through the bulge, and you'll see the difference. I'm going to just toggle 180 degrees like that, and then I'll go back to 0. You see the displacement of the stars? That's all that's happening. Thermal expansion is happening because the sun is so hot. Now, obviously, if you've ever studied helioseismology, the study of the sun, they will say that the corona of the sun is like exponentially hotter than the photosphere. The photosphere would be the surface of the sun. And so you understand what really is going on here. It's the corona that is actually exhibiting most of the heat. Most of the heat is actually going sideways. So it's splaying out like that. And so that's why this glass sphere is not going to melt, because most of the heat is going sideways. If you ever look at a solar eclipse and you see the solar corona, I'll type one in real quick. And you notice how the corona, like this image right here, it shows how the corona is splaying out sideways for the most part. So most of the heat is actually going out sideways like that, but there's still heat in front of it as well. And so that is what's going on here. Also, I was doing some research on the Libyan desert glass, and it exhibits what they call negative viscosity. And when pressure is applied, when heat is applied, the index of refraction changes as well. And so it's going to displace the moon during an eclipse as well. And with the bending of the light, like I mentioned before in a previous video, the way in which the light of the sun hits the back of the moon is only a half of a sphere. Think of like a bowl. And it's paramagnetic, which means it has a very weak magnetic field, and it aligns with the magnetic field. And so this is a new moon over here. When, like the day after the new moon, the light from the sun is still gonna line up with the back of the moon. It's like the moon is like a concave catcher's mitt. It catches the light. And that's sung by Sufjan Stevens. The bowl is filled with light. And so that's what's happening with the moon, and the way the light is interacting, the sunlight is interacting with the moon. The moon, it aligns up the light parallel, and it sucks it up when it's near the sun. But when it's further away,
obviously it begins to deviate and we begin to see the phases of the moon. But that has to do with the magnetism. If you ever watched that video where the guy is putting a magnet to a cathode ray tube and the light beam or the electron beam from the CRT tube is bending or it's being repelled by the magnet, well, this is similar to that, but only the moon being a paramagnetic material is actually aligning itself with the magnetic field. So we have a few different variables at play here. We have the negative viscosity, which also increases the negative refraction of the glass. It bends the light. It's called the relaxing of the Libyan desert glass. There's actually an article that NASA was a part of. Let's see if we can find that really quick here. I think it's right over here. Relaxation of Libyan desert glass, evidence for negative viscosity, pressure dependence in silica. And look, lo and behold, it's in the Smithsonian Astrophysics, something or other associated with NASA. So yeah, they studied it. They know what's going on. They know that there's glass above and it's creating real lensing. It's not gravitational lensing. So that's what's going on with that. So lately, as I was continuing on, trying to map out the orbit of the moon, I realized that I was encountering a little bit of a difficulty with the illumination and the phases of the moon, especially when they were getting closer to the sun. And I would actually assume when they're getting when they're getting near full as well, when there's like a waxing gibbous moon. And that has to do with the fact that physically, if you were not to actually use a negative refracting element to actually decrease your crescent or your terminator line, you're going to run into problems. And so initially, that's what I was doing. I was creating my crosshairs, and like for this location here, this phase, I was getting a 47-degree angle right there. And over here, I was getting a 23.5-degree angle. And what I was noticing is that, let's go to the moon phase calendar here. December 30th would be a new moon. You barely see anything. I don't know, maybe it was the 29th or the 30th, but first day after the new moon, you just get a little sliver. You just get a little fingernail there, basically. It's only 4% visibility. I'm like, oh, what's going on here? 9% visibility for the second day. And so it has to do with the negative refraction. I'm like, I was scratching my head for the longest time. And oh, of course, the negative refracting element is actually decreasing the crescent, and it's actually displacing the location of the moon. And so I have these little virtual moons up here, like for this, let's go down here. For location B over here, I have a displaced virtual location over here with a refracting element, which actually cuts the crescent by half. It's 23.5 instead of 47. And same thing over here for the location over here. My angle is 23.5 and it decreases it by about half, 13 degrees. And so actually with that understanding at play, with the negative refraction at play, everything works out beautifully, perfectly. And so if I go into 3D here, let me see if you can see my, you see at the bottom there, you see my camera and my rotation angle here. I have a light source shining on the moon, and I will just toggle on and off refraction just like I've done before previously. Currently, this phase, this crescent, does have refraction. The focal length is 250 millimeters, and the camera angle, this is important too, because this is going to help you understand when I talk about displacement of the image of the moon. It's at negative 6.9. That's the heading angle. So the heading angle is negative 6.9 with negative refraction on. The glass sky that's covering the moon is a negative refractive index of negative 1.5. And so that's the image that we get. So now let's toggle off the refraction. And it disappears. That's for one thing. Let's increase the focal length to 2,000 millimeters. What I have to do is I have to rotate my camera now. So that's the thing. I have to bring it back to almost 0. There it is right there. Okay, I'm at negative 0.8 degrees. So it displaces the actual image of the moon. Not only that, now look at the terminator. This is without refraction. Let's make it a little bit bigger. 2200 millimeters. I can take a screen grab of that and we'll compare and contrast. So copy. To negative 6.9 degrees. So we're talking about like a 6-degree displacement. That's severe. I mean, and that's just playing around. It could be more. I'm just helping you understand the negative refraction is critical in understanding lunar phases. Now you will understand. Okay, on the left we have negative refraction, and look at that crescent. It's half. The light source, the angle of the light source has not changed. Keep that in mind. If I go back here to the top view here, I'll show you the light source. There's the light source right there, okay? I just angled the camera. That's all I did. See, if you look at the bottom here, I'm just angling the camera from, what did I say, negative 0.8 to negative 6.9. The light source is continuing to stay the same. And so when you angle the camera like that, obviously you're changing your viewpoint of the moon. And so you're going to see a different terminator line of the moon. You're going to see it's going to be thinner or thicker depending on which way you go. So that's just caused by the negative refraction and the displacement of the virtual image of the moon. Now you will understand, like, there's a lot of weird anomalies. People like, well, the moon, it seems to like rise really fast toward the horizon, and then it seems like it just kind of like lingers up in the sky for the longest time, and then it begins to accelerate back toward the horizon. Well, now you understand why, because there's negative refraction at play. It's amazing how I just continue to see how things are divinely scripted and orchestrated like this, and how God has hid these things from the wise and prudent. And the scientific mind is just completely baffled. I mean, it's just amazing. Fraser Clown, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm Fraser Kane, the publisher of Universe Today. Have you ever noticed that the moon always looks the same?
Have you ever noticed that when people like initially jerk like that, it's a hypnotic suggestion to like jolt you into their attention? Watch again.
Sure, the phase changes, but the actual features on the moon always look the same from month to month. Does the moon rotate? What's going on? From our perspective here on Earth, the moon always shows us the same face because it's tidally locked to our planet. At some point in the distant past, the moon did rotate from our perspective, but the Earth's gravity kept pulling unevenly at the moon, slowing its rotation.
And it just happens to now, it's perfectly in sync, ladies and gentlemen. At some point it doesn't pass you out, but now it's just perfectly in sync now, magically.
Eventually, the moon locked into place, always displaying the same side to it.
Oh, I see, it locked.
But if you look down on the Earth-Moon system from the North Celestial Pole, from the perspective of Polaris, the North Star, you see that the moon actually does rotate on its axis. In fact,
Well, I see that it's an animation, yeah, but not a reality, dude. I showed you how the moon actually operates within the concave Earth. Okay, I showed you the sidereal month.
So as you see it moving around here, we have a little marker indicating our place on the Earth. Looks like we're in Africa somewhere. And once it accumulates to 27.32 days, that marks the sidereal month of the moon. That's how many days it takes for the moon to align back up with the celestial sphere. The synodic month. And if we go on to 29.53 days, that is what is called a synodic month. That is where we mark new moon to new moon, where the sun and the moon align up. The anomalistic month. Now I'm going to reverse the rotation of the moon by locking the sun in place so we can see the actual anomalistic month, where it records the perigee and the apogee. Perigee is when it's closest to the Earth and it's going to move faster, and apogee is further away from the Earth and it's going to move slower. So you'll see the variable speed of the moon. Remember, ellipses are fiction. Kepler was wrong. You see, the green line is a linear line. It's moving at a constant rate, and the moon is slowly beginning to slow down as the green line catches up as it enters apogee and it's further away from the Earth. So there's an influence that the moon has and the Earth has on the moon. When it moves further away from the Earth, it begins to slow down, and when it gets closer to the Earth, it begins to speed up again. You see the moon is approaching, getting faster. There's actually a 9-year cycle, actually it's 8.85 years of the anomalistic months. So every 117 months, the moon will do a complete circuit, almost like spirograph. There's a mechanism the ancient Greeks used. Archimedes actually probably made it. It was called the Antikythera device. And it recorded, it actually predicted the eclipses and the motions of the planets. See, the Earth is a precise mechanism. This would never work in a heliocentric vast universe. So after 117 months, it finishes the complete circuit of the anomalistic cycle. Very cool. And the draconic month. Looking front on, we see the declination range of the moon and the sun as they pass across the sky. From left to right, we see the termination line of the moon changing from day to day. We also see the backside of the moon. This is the lunar month of January 20th to February 18th. We see the equator there is actually shared with the celestial sphere. That means there's no tilt to the Earth. We can also see the sun's ecliptic at negative 23.5 to 23.5, which means the sun is oscillating in a cylindrical path from year to year. This cycle for the moon is called the draconic month at 27.21 days. And the lunar standstill of 18.6 years is the time in which the moon actually fluctuates in the sky, going from very high to a major lunar standstill of negative 28.5 to 28.5 to a lower minor lunar standstill of negative 18.5 to 18.5. This October, we are entering into a minor lunar standstill, so the moon will not ascend or descend that high in the sky. When the sun is low like that in the south, the bond it has with the top of the pyramid loosens, so it gets closer to the Earth. That's why we have a bigger angular diameter of the sun in the south. This is also how we can predict lunar and solar eclipses, because everything is synchronized within this time mechanism of the concave Earth. The simplest answer is always the best answer. Occam's razor. And how the moon affects tides. There have been found traces of metal in the glass sky, magnetite or iron. So the glass sky is slightly magnetic. So as the moon orbits around, because I believe the moon as well is metal, so the moon is actually pulling the glass sky closer to itself as it moves around the inside of the Earth throughout the day. Not only that, on the moon side of the sky, of the glass sky, but on the opposite side, I believe there's a stress reaction that's happening as well. So we have this pinching. So this glass sky looking top down is more like an oval. So there's your only ellipse within the concave Earth. So this glass sky is moving around throughout the day. I believe the sun also is magnetic, but it doesn't
have as much effect on the glass because it's further away. And so the sun will affect the tides as well, but predominantly it's the moon.
And I showed you how lunar eclipses happen.
All working perfectly beautifully within the concave Earth. And you know what? There's a reason why it doesn't rotate. It is actually locked, but it's only a half sphere. Okay, it's metal, it's magnetic. But there's a force that you neglect to talk about. It's called centripetal force. You know what that force is, Mr. Fraser Clown? Where's my ball? Here it is. Got a half tennis ball here. Centripetal force. Now, if I were to actually attach this with a rubber band and spin it really fast, obviously the circle would be bigger, right? If I slowed it down, the circle would be small. That's what's happening with our moon. There's an apogee and a perigee. The perigee is when it's closer to the Earth. Okay, this is spinning inside the concave Earth. It's very simple, people. Higher tension to the string makes it a bigger circle, closer to the Earth and more velocity. Higher tension, higher speed, closer to the Earth, perigee. Lower tension, lower speed, farther away from the Earth, apogee. Also, there's a tilt to the moon. We call that libration. It tilts every 8 degrees each way, okay? And it also has to do with the concept of angular momentum within the concave Earth. It's very simple. The higher tension during the perigee, moon is going to tilt this way. During apogee, it's going to tilt the other way. So I just solved the reason why we have libration. It only makes sense within the concave Earth, ladies and gentlemen. It only makes sense, okay? Let's go on though. I want to hear Fraser talk.
The moon travels around the Earth in a counterclockwise orbit every 27.5 days. It also completes one full rotation on its axis, also moving in a counterclockwise direction. If you look at the time-lapse animation of the moon moving entirely through its phases over the...
What do you think the probabilities are that the moon would complete one orbit of rotation every lunar month? Just perfectly match with the Earth. Well, let's just call it lunar locking or tidal locking, whatever they want to call it. But really, gee, that's kind of coincidental, don't you think? Let's go on, Fraser Clown.
Over the course of a month, you'll notice a strange wobble as if the moon is rocking back and forth on its axis a bit. This is known as libration. On average, the moon is tidally locked to the Earth's surface, but its actual orbit is elliptical. It moves closer and then more distant from the Earth. When the moon is at its closest point, its rotation is slower than its orbital speed, so we see an additional 8 degrees on its eastern side. And then when the moon...
That's what I just told you, right? Higher tension, closer to the Earth. You're going to see more of it more of the moon on its eastern side. Okay? It has nothing to do with the slower rotation of the Earth, of the moon. The moon is not rotating, ladies and gentlemen. Higher tension, perigee, angular momentum, higher tension, the moon tilts 8 degrees. Lower tension, apogee, the moon tilts the other way 8 degrees. There's no rotation to the moon.
8 degrees
Keep going,
on
fat
its
man.
eastern side. And then when the moon is at its most distant point, the rotation is faster than its orbital speed, so we can see 8 degrees on the western side. Libration allowed astronomers to map out more of the moon's surface than we could see if the moon followed a circular orbit. Until the space age, half the moon was hidden from us, always facing...
It still is half. It still is half hidden from you. Watch, listen.
This hemisphere of the moon was finally first observed by the Soviet Luna 3 probe in 1959.
Stop! The Soviet Luna 3 probe of 1959. Did you know that was a hoax? Did you know that was a hoax, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, it was. The photos that the Soviets showed from 1959 and onward of the moon are just models of a moon filmed in a studio somewhere. That is why the United States had the opportunity to fake their moon landings, because they held it as leverage against the Soviets, blackmailed. Soviets, we know you faked this bullshit moon crap, fake back of the moon shit. So we're going to stage our moon landings, and if you blow our cover, we'll blow yours. So it was a form of blackmail. Also now, think about this, okay? Let's hear it from the lips of Mr. Fatman Fraser Clown himself.
Followed by the first human eyes with Apollo 8 in 1968. The two hemispheres of the moon are very different. While the near side is covered with large basaltic plains called maria, the far side is almost completely covered in craters.
Why? Why would that be completely different? Why would two sides of the moon be completely different? Think about this, guys. Think 1959, Soviet hoax, the back of the moon, right? They set the mold for the back of the moon, okay? You cannot veer off course of the way that moon looks now. Because if you do, you'll know, everybody will know that it's fake, even though it is fake. You understand what I'm saying? Psychology there, okay? Once the Soviets filmed, shot, faked the backside of the moon with a model in a photo studio somewhere, that cast the mold for the backside of the moon. That's what it looks like. So we cannot veer off the course. We have to keep it the same similitude. That's why it looks very different. Soviets simply added more craters to their model of the back of the moon. See, everything just bam, 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 snaps right into place once you understand concave Earth, glass sky, half bullshit moon, centripetal force. Everything's working in circle. There's no elliptical path to the moon. You've been found out, you liar, Mr. Fraser Clown. You're a liar.
The reasons for this difference is still a mystery to planetary scientists.
It's not a mystery anymore.
So yes, the moon does rotate.
Shut up, asshole. Okay.
Exactly matches
Enough of you,
around the
clown.
Earth.
Later, guys. This is an a posteriori disclaimer about this video I just made. As I was compiling the video, I realized that, NASA had their hands tied behind their back because the Soviets initially lied. And so America lied too. And so now I realize they've been waiting for me to expose this, both America and Russia. So please forgive me for the insults, people at NASA, Fraser, other people too. And that's also why NASA's revealing, the Curiosity rover, they show the shadow of the man on Mars. See, they want the lies slowly, well, now it's rapidly coming out, and I'm going to be revealed. The concave Earth, glass sky, Messiah will be revealed, the hail of the Lord Jesus Christ. So I feel bad for insulting NASA. I feel a sense of, wow, little old me exposed this big lie of these two superpower countries. So I'm kind of humbled by it. Later.
He never listens to.
Stevens Point, Wisconsin, it's a city in Wisconsin. Communication. One. But all need to recognize the POV, poverty. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. We need to recognize and acknowledge point of view. Come under me, you won't hurt, you won't hurt.
Entertain the notion that with everything you've learned about the Earth and the universe was prodigiously skewed from its foundational premise that it's supposedly a tiny, insignificant planet in the vastness of an infinite universe. Now, if you can try to wipe clean all the information that's been pumped into your brains about the supposed rotation of the Earth, think viscerally, call forth your inherent and intrinsic perspicuity, your instinct. Come with me, please. Entertain the notion that God has predeterminately tricked mankind, especially intelligent mankind, that all the scientific and mathematical data and information man has accrued, calculated, and hypothesized has all been founded upon an erroneous foundational supposition. Consider the possibility that space agencies are clandestinely aware of this ruse and keep it that way in order to exploit corporate and scholastic funding. Their secret is well kept hidden by public incredulity and the pride of man's unwillingness to capitulate to such monumental errors for the sake of embarrassment and capital loss. Speculate the axiom that the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. Consider all the cosmological and scientific achievements of man and the pride of man over the past 400 years, and entertain the possibility that God has allowed these blatant tangential errors to culminate at the highest possible peak of calculation in order to thrust them down and obliterate them at the end of time, for his glory, for his entertainment. Think inverted. Imagine the universe is actually tiny and inverted and orbits all inside a hollow inverted shell we know as Earth. Therefore, the sun, the moon, the stars, the planets, the galaxies are all exponentially tiny in comparison to what we have learned. They say that money makes the world go round. In a profound and dizzying way, it most certainly does. However, it is God that stops it.
The seal of the living God will replace money altogether. This is the catalyst for the New World Order system, which also is the literal kingdom of God on earth. The seal will determine the sheep from the goats, the meek from the proud. It will be implemented in such a way to force the people of the world to either choose to submit to God and to me, who stands as a God in the flesh, who is God's son and messenger of the covenant between man and God, or not to, and perish. The wise people of the world will understand that this prophetic fulfillment is the catalyst to finally bring peace and harmony, justice and righteousness to the world. Do not confuse the seal as something nefariously evil as the much feared mark of the beast, in which biblical prophecy has been obfuscated from its real benevolent intention in Revelation 14. A mark is just that, a mark. It is not an RFID chip that is implanted into people to keep tabs on them. Of course, as part of God's divine game, the RFID chip acts as a diversion, as an antithetic fulfillment. Just as there is a genuine, there is also the counterfeit. The seal of God, which is a tattoo, which appropriates propriety of humans to God, is the genuine, benevolent solution of fulfillment. It is also a mark on the body. The positive results will be the outcome of wearing the mark as goodness flourishes, and the meek acting always righteous, sharing kindness, encouragement, and love. Conversely, the counterfeit RFID chip is a nefarious instrument of attempted control, cruelty, avarice, and bondage to a system governed by the evil intentions of men. I am the messenger of the covenant between God and man. I am mentioned throughout biblical prophecy as the one humanity has been patiently waiting for to bring peace to God's people on earth. Malachi, Isaiah, Daniel, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Davidic Psalms, Habakkuk, Zechariah, Zephaniah, Moses, Solomon, Paul, Peter, James, and yes, even Jesus of Nazareth, my prior incarnation, all have spoken of me as the one to come. Yet I am not received with the much anticipated joy one would think. When the Son of Man comes, will he find faith on earth? There are obstacles. The Christian has been warned not to believe anyone who comes and testifies that he is Christ.
The Jew is blinded by other appearances. Yet there is wisdom inherent in the wise and meek to see through these apparent obstacles. I will not elaborate here, for I do not need the testimony of man to uplift me to my eminent position of authority over all mankind. I do not need the majority of public opinion in this current mobocracy to vote me into office. I merely have to wait patiently for my cognizant angels to exalt me into my rightful position. Please understand, when that time comes for me to rightly take my seat of authority, that I have been working to educate you in this new understanding of the new world, so it will not come to you as a complete shock. Please also be wise and reverent in relating to me, because there are many proud and bashing people online that do not understand who they are relating to. They think that I am just another man. Yet all those who are incensed against me will be utterly ashamed. Peace, understanding, and love. Steve.
Here's what's going on. On Friday night, arsonists set fires in 3 separate locations. Of course, this destroyed 15 homes and damaged 25 others, with 4 people injured in the blaze. This took place on Friday night just as the Sabbath was beginning. Also, residents near Jerusalem were evacuated on Friday evening.
I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming home. Let the rain wash away all the pain of yesterday. I know my kingdom awaits, and they've forgiven my mistakes. I'm coming home, I'm coming home. Tell the world I'm coming.
There's something that humans detect when they listen to me, watch me, or the way I speak. It's something strange. Something is weird about that man's behavior, his speech, his tone, the way he talks. Like, who is? And it disturbs you, but it also intrigues you, and so it compels you to keep being fascinated by this strangeness. That, I mean, is he really human? And then some people want to think, oh, he's reptilian or whatever. Never coming to the realization or the acknowledgement that I am God. I'm just wearing this mask called a human. It's just like it's strange. I could, something we could see through that mask. You're not human. That should help you understand me. I love you. Rich. Hello. Bye. From the South Pole. The sun never sets. Within the correct form of the earth, hollow, concave, spherical, stationary, sunlight is bending.
Hi guys, this is my version of the Earth's magnetic field lines within the concave Earth, as opposed to a convex Earth where they have a barb magnet in the middle. I believe that the magnetic current or field lines are wrapping around
the outer edge going in and out from the north and south, I believe there's actually openings in the north and south of the rind. Okay, I believe those openings are covered over with continental plates. I believe that's also why the poles of the Earth are flattened, because they don't have that outer metal covering. So you have these openings. This is a cutaway, obviously, I don't know. But at the north and south, we have these openings, and the magnetic flux is exiting out the north, going around the outside, and coming back in from the south. And these openings are offset. The rind is offset slightly. If you'll notice the auroral zone, it's like 10 degrees offset. It's not perfectly aligned with the geographic north and south poles. And I believe that this rind is precessing, slowly shifting, because I believe that there's like layers within the Earth, whether they be water or oil, that's actually lubricating the outer rind to press us back and forth. I believe that's also why the magnetic north and south poles shift, because of this precessing effect. The magnetic north poles are not precisely in unison with the shift. I believe that's because of the different perturbations that are happening within the Earth. But for the most part, I believe that this is like a rocking back and forth mechanism. We're never going to have like a magnetic reversal, I don't believe, especially because the time is short. But this is how I believe it's operating. I believe the auroras are happening because of the Earth's magnetic field is interfering with the sun's magnetic field at the glass sky level at 100 kilometers. That's what's causing the auroras to happen. Yeah, so this is my theory about the Earth's magnetic field. It has an outer metal rind to it, and they have openings in the north and south that are covered over with continental plates, which flattens out the poles. Thanks for watching.
Phenomena that Einstein first predicted in 1937, though he said it would never be observed. He underestimated observers. If you look at this picture, you'll see these blue things, these weird blue things. That is a phenomenon that we now understand as gravitational lensing. Einstein told us that a mass will curve space around it. And he realized, therefore, if you had a big enough mass and you have a source of light behind that mass, the light can bend around that object and come back and be magnified, just like my glasses magnify. Or like a cut glass goblet, if you look through it, you see I'd see many images of this room. Mass can act like a lens and magnify things and split images, and that's precisely what we're seeing. All of these blue things are different images of a single galaxy located about 3 billion light years behind this cluster. Gravity is magnifying the image, it's distorting it and bending it. Remarkable. Truly remarkable. But because we understand general relativity, we could work backwards.
During the time of the flood, these sonoluminescent stars, they clustered together and they became very hot. And they began to melt through the glass, celestial firmament, and creating these little pockets, these little indentations and openings. The windows of heaven were opened, right? Windows of heaven were opened, and so the water came down. The water also came up from the fountains of the deep of the earth. So we had water coming down and water coming up. And so after the water came down and after the sand came down too, sand is what created this secondary firmament at 100 kilometers, which actually pushed the water down. That's why we have the rainbow, because the sun is within this region here. So the sun is only a half sphere, Everything is operating on curved light. And so that's why we see rainbows, because the sun is being dispersed through this glass medium and being projected onto the raindrops. The raindrops are not the source of the rainbow. Anyway, going back to the celestial sphere, glass sky, it healed back together. So it closed up. The windows of heaven were closed after the great flood. So now you have these indentations, these peaks and valleys. This glass celestial firmament, because of the way it had been ruptured, it had been opened up, and then it healed back together, it's not perfectly smooth like that. It's more like this glass here.
Let's go back now to the two-dimensional pattern of the CMB map. There are things we can do with that as well. First one is lensing. Deflection of light by matter is well observed in astronomy. This has to be done with a simulation. Simulate what the cosmic background would look like with this 6-parameter model, fits Planck data, but the cosmic background. Here's a patch of sky 10 degrees across. And now add intervening matter, add in the rest of the universe. How would this pattern change? Catch that? Unlensed, unaffected by intervening matter, and affected by intervening matter. The lensing rearranges the CMB pattern a little bit.
There's no need to have mass act like a lens when there actually is a lens, a cut glass goblet lens of the celestial sphere, damaged after the flood.
Here's an inversion by Tony Tyson, who's now up in Davis. This is the system, and the spikes are where this is where the mass is in this system. The spikes are where the galaxies are. But you notice most of the mass in this whole system of clusters of galaxies is not where the galaxies are. It's between the galaxies. It's where nothing is shining. About 50 times as much mass in this system, and in all systems we can measure, comes from stuff that doesn't shine. And physicists, with their linguistic perspicacity, have called it dark matter.
Tiny bubble,
Tiny bubbles. Look at this. Look at this, guys. Tiny bubbles. Stars are as big as grains of sand. I'm not kidding you. Fraudulent astronomy is in big trouble. You astronomer, are either a fool or a liar. Now, if you're a fool, there's a little bit of grace for you because you didn't know. You're just stupid, ignorant. But if you're a liar, you're in big trouble because you've been deceiving the public. And you're going to have to face me at judgment time. You liars. You know that the stars are up in the middle of the concave earth in the celestial sphere, a literal celestial crystalline sphere that contains water, contains a celestial ocean, and the stars are created by a process called multi-bubble sonoluminescence.
When physicists have an important number, they give it a Greek letter all the time. We call it omega. Omega is the ratio of the total amount of stuff we know is in the universe divided by the amount of stuff you need to make a flat universe, the boundary between an open and closed universe. If it's less than 1, the universe is open. If it's greater than 1, the universe is closed. And we have now measured unambiguously that there's only 30% of the amount of material in the universe, including dark matter, to make the universe flat. This is a real problematic number. We now know the universe has only 1/3 the amount of matter to make it flat. The problem is that theorists like me knew the answer. The universe must be flat. Why? Well, there are 2 reasons. There's the one I normally say, which is it's the only mathematically beautiful universe, which is true. But there's another reason I don't usually talk about, but I'll talk about here. It turns out
that in a flat universe, the total energy of the universe is precisely zero. Because gravity can have negative energy. So the negative energy of gravity balances out the positive energy of matter. What's so beautiful about a universe with total energy zero? Well, only such a universe can begin from nothing. And that is remarkable. Because the laws of physics allow a universe to begin from nothing. You don't need a deity. You have nothing, zero total energy, and quantum fluctuations can produce a universe. So if the universe isn't flat, we're worried. Because then you've got energy at the very beginning of time. So that was another reason that people like me were pretty sure the universe was flat. But the damn observers came up with the wrong number. But the damn observers came up with the wrong number.
Well, if the damn observers come up with the wrong number, just make shit up.
Radiation coming at that surface. On this surface is a very important scale, 1 degree. Why 1 degree? Because that represents a distance of 100,000 light years. Now, the surface existed when the universe was 100,000 years old, and Einstein tells us no information could propagate faster than light. So that means nothing that happened over here at that time could ever affect anything that happens over here. But more importantly, if I have a lump of matter that's this big across at that time, it doesn't even know it's a lump because gravity can't have traveled across it. So it's like Wile E. Coyote in those cartoons when he goes off the cliff. He waits a while before he collapses. Okay? And such large lumps won't collapse. So the biggest lumps that can have collapsed at that time will be 1 degree across. And that gives us a cosmic triangle. Because we have a ruler that's 100,000 light years across.
A couple assumptions there, Larry, that you are totally erroneous about. Number one, you're making the assumption, the uniformitarianism assumption that things happen gradually over time. 14 billion years old. Dear Lord. No, the universe is quite young, happened very catastrophically with cavitation. But anyway, going back to your 100,000 year 1 degree scenario, I mean, do you not even understand? Have you ever heard of the concept of the concave Earth? This is not Earth. No. And this wall that you talk about is the celestial sphere. It's the wall, it's the dark waters and the thick clouds of the celestial sphere, which contains water. This is glass, crystalline glass, okay? Stars are embedded in here. That's where the solar luminescence is coming from. That's the wall. That's the wall there. And then a concave Earth. Okay, you're inside the Earth. The glass skies. Okay, you're looking, this 1 degree that you're talking about is minute. Okay, it's not 100,000 light years. The celestial sphere is approximately, let's say, 15,000 kilometers in circumference. That's it. So 1 degree is only going to be 150 kilometers. So if you're measuring 1 degree and you're putting triangulation coordinates on 1 degree of 150 kilometers, it's relatively small. But you stretch it across 100,000 light years. It's asinine. There is no light years, Larry. Wake up. Wake up, man. You've been drugged. You're living inside the concave Earth. This wall is the dark waters, the thick clouds of the celestial sphere. Heavenly pyramid is about that. You don't see that. That's what's going on there. Universe is not fun. They say light. No, light bends, Larry. Light bends. You hear Wilhelm Martin? He showed geodetically that light bends. So you're wrong. The universe is not flat, and if you're really going to worry about that there is a deity, then, just unless you know I'm a nice guy, but judgment's coming because the sun's going to stop soon. But the universe is definitely not flat. So no matter how many calisthenics you do and contortions you do and try to imagine it being flat, wanting it to be flat, maybe if you pray really hard, it'll be flat. So this triangulation method, this desperation, to show that it's flat, you're stretching it 100,000 light years? Light years are not even existent. What's wrong with you? The CMB, the cosmic microwave background, speaks of alignment, polarization as a dipole. Celestial sphere is a band. It divides the sphere into two hemispheres that have opposing currents. That's what steers the sun north and south. I've explained this in previous videos. And it's telling of a deity because it is definitely not flat. It's encased in a ruptured glass. There's water on the inside. The stars are created by sonoluminescence, which means they are bubbles. Of course, they're not going to have mass. Bubbles in water. The water surrounding the bubbles will have the mass. That's the dark matter. Simply dark water. And judgment's coming because the sun's going to stop. See, this celestial sphere contains the pyramid that generates the heat, the thermal heat to reach the sun. And there's really not much of a heat escape. There might be a little heat escape in the trapezium and the Orion Nebula, but for the most part, it's overheating. It's going to stop just like how an engine stops when it overheats. And then when it does, the sun will stop. It will cause all the ice that's attached to the glass sky at 100 kilometers high to rupture and unravel like a scroll and burn up the earth. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for judgment? Stop lying to the people. Stop insulting me. I'm not crazy. I'm telling of judgment to come, people. Repent as soon as possible and acknowledge me.
The sun is not spherical, ladies and gentlemen. If it were spherical, you could take these infrared or ultraviolet or whatever false color images of the sun, and you will always see a defined rim, a defined illuminated ring to the sun. You understand what I'm saying? If the sun were spherical, we'd see it more without the ring. It would just blend into where the dark regions, they would just blend into the night sky. The lighter regions would be lighter. It wouldn't have a ring to it. It's one good indication that you know that the sun is not a ball. It's not a sphere. The sun is a half sphere. I've seen the back of the sun in a vision. I know what it looks like. It only gives the illusion of rotation. The fact that it has a differential in quote rotation from the quote equator to the quote poles is another indication that it is not a sphere. It's not a gaseous ball exhibiting a conveyor belt action faster along the so-called equator because that's where the light rays, the collimated light rays from the back of the sun are hitting the sun at the midsection. So it's going faster there because there's higher electromagnetic activity in the midsection as opposed to the top and the bottom, or the north and the south, otherwise known as the poles. But since the sun is not a sphere, it's not a ball, it doesn't have poles and it doesn't have an equator. It has a midsection and it has the top and the bottom. This defined edge here that you see on the sun from these false color images would not be there if the sun were a sphere, period. The sun is a half sphere. I've seen this, like I said before, in a vision when I was up in heaven above the celestial sphere, above the celestial ocean. It has a backside, and it's dark and flat from the backside. We have light hitting the back midsection of the sun. I do not call it an equator because it's not a ball. It's not a gaseous ball. And it has a top and a bottom. And there's a difference in velocity. It's not a difference in rotation because we simply have a conveyor belt action going on with these contour lines. And so this difference in velocity is actually creating the twisting, the arcing that we see in the sun. The reason why it's faster across the midsection is because of the collimated light rays that are hitting the back midsection of the sun. So we can never see the back side of the sun from Earth's vantage point. We always see the front side. Same thing with the moon. We only see the front of the moon and the front of the sun. I believe the sun and moon were at one time one ball, where they bifurcated, they split up and became two. The sun received the light, its energy from the pyramid, from the power source. The cathode, the anode to the cathode, the father to the sun. And the moon receives the sunlight. I believe the moon is a self-illuminating sphere. You see shadows on the moon. You see shadows on the moon craters. So that is what's happening with the sun. It's a masterful deception. Completely fooled all of scientific humanity. They think the sun is a gaseous ball, but it's not. The sun is electric. When you see sunspots, they are actually holes. They are indicative that the sun is hollow in this area here between the back plate and the front surface. So the conveyor belt action is going to wrap around the convex side, and it's wrapping around and going behind on the concave side of the sun. It's a difference in velocity. And the reason why the midsection is faster is because the energy from the collimated light in the back is going across the midsection, energizing that section more. It's also why we have rainbows. You can tell. The reason why we see rainbows is because we see the rim of the sun. It's like if you hold a flashlight to a wall, the glass bulb in the flashlight disperses the light. Same thing with the glass in the sky, the concave Earth. The glass in the sky disperses the sunlight and projects it onto water vapor, reflective water vapor. Whether it's from a garden hose or whether it's mist from after a rainstorm, or whether it's dew on the ground, or whether it's clouds when you see the rainbow from an airplane. You see the top of clouds, you see a rainbow, you see the shadow of the airplane and the rainbow. So that is what's going on. It's a masterful trick. It's a divine trick. It tripped up all of scientific mankind. The sun is electric. It's a transformer. It receives its energy from the central pyramid, father to son, anode to cathode. Thanks for watching.
Hey guys, I wanted to point out a mistake I made in my concave Earth video. It was the Milky Way. I had it tilted incorrectly. It's actually, in my animation, it's going around the celestial equator. And later I found out that's not the case. It actually tilts at a 60-degree angle. So if you look up in the sky, you see the Milky Way. Now keep in mind, in the concave Earth, the Milky Way is not a spiral galaxy. This is reality. You're not a little insignificant dot vast, endless universe. No, that's not it. The Milky Way galaxy serves a very important function. Okay, remember in Scripture it says that the stars are created for signs and seasons. Seasons. The Milky Way actually, I'll get to that a little bit later, but it actually governs the direction of the sun. It's what it is. It's a band. It's a ring or a band or a governor or a rudder that's wrapped around the celestial sphere. And there's my correction of the animation. It's tilted at 60 degrees like that, and it governs the direction of the sun, whether the sun wants to go north or south laterally. What I did was I did some investigation into the Milky Way galaxy, and it turns out that from 1990, I believe, to 1993 to 2009, there was, I guess, I must say,
how cute. He's at church. One more flat earther at church. Right?
It's very close. It's within the Earth. Okay.
All right.
And as far as like satellites go, if you know anything about, they're not really up there. They can't get past the thermosphere because it's 2,000 degrees Celsius.
When are you going to figure it out, man?
Yeah.
You're not going to find the truth in the churches.
Some kind of apparatus, some kind of surveilling camera apparatus to the glass sky at 100 kilometers high, and then you can shoot the sky. You can take pictures of the sky, or they might have a very low orbiting satellite that's just going skimming above the glass. But if you get any higher than 120, 140 kilometers, the temperature increases so big you survive. And then they try to tell you, well, the air molecules are too far apart. It just doesn't. But anyway, the Ulysses satellite, I was doing some research and I found out that it says that here observations of the sun's poles are sensitive to the tilt the sun's rotation axis relative to the ecliptic plane. What does that mean? Observations of the sun's poles are sensitive to the tilt. Okay, and it says it reverses every 6 months. See, this is a key indicator because when I looked at the band around the celestial sphere, I thought it's got to be doing something every 6 months. It's got to be serving some kind of purpose, some kind of function every 6 months because the sun is going around the celestial sphere, but it's going through the band every 6 months. So something's happening every 6 months with the Milky Way galaxy. Not a galaxy. Well, it's not a galaxy. It's a band. I can correct myself there. So yeah, I think what's going on when they took the observation with the Ulysses probe, they probably had two different apparatuses mounted at very high latitudes. This is my theory about what they did. This is my guess, basically. So this diagram, it shows a concave Earth reality in which we're living in because light curves within the Earth. It's difficult to see the poles, the top and bottom of the sun, because like if you're standing anywhere inside the surface of the Earth, let's say you're standing here at the equator, when you always look up at the sky, you're always looking at the front of the sun. If you like even way down here in the southern region, the way your eye works, it's like an endoscope. It's like fiber optics. You're always looking at the face of the celestial sun, of the celestial sphere. The moon's a little bit lower, so you see a little bit more of the edges of the moon, but not much. But the higher you go, especially the sun, that's why we always see the front of the sun, because light curves like an endoscope, like a fiber optic endoscope. So the Ulysses satellite, they probably, this is my guess, they simply attached cameras. If you watched, I made a video about attaching cameras to the sky, and there's actually artifacts. Google and Microsoft, they show, space programs, they show artifacts of apparatuses up in the sky. And so they probably, what they did is they attached something here on the glass sky in the southern region to monitor the southern pole. Now, it's not really a pole because I don't believe the sun is a sphere. I believe it's a half sphere. It's kind of like a kettle drum. As I told you before, I had a vision of the back of the sun. The back of the sun had these parallel rays hitting the diameter of the sun, indicating that it was a flat surface, and which also testifies to the electricity of the sun. If you understand anything about what they talk about the electricity of the sun, whether it's Walt Thornhill or Donald Scott, they say that the sun is electric. This is very accurate too because it flies in the face of mainstream solar research, which is all baloney. Okay, so in the mainstream, the standard model, they say that the sun has a core and there's convection going on. There's no indication of convection. I mean, I can show you this video later. I'll give you a link to it later, but it shows that there's so many problems with the sun being this nuclear ball with a core. You know, convection doesn't happen that way where they have the granules on the photosphere. They just invent this stuff up as they go because that's not the truth about the sun. The sun is electric. The sun is hollow. Remember Eric Dollard, he said, those black holes in the sun, they're indicative of the sun being hollow. And then he also said that the sun is getting its energy from a different source, a different dimension. And I'll go into that later too. I say it's the pyramid in the middle of the earth. That is the source. That's the anode to the cathode. Okay, you have an electric current going. You have a circuitry connecting, going from the top of the pyramid to the back of the sun. And the sun is revolving around the inside of the earth. So with these probes, this is how I believe what they did is they, in the south, during the summertime when the sun is farthest away, they get a better angle of the south side of the sun. Same thing in the north. You're up here during the winter solstice, the sun is down here, you get a better angle of the north pole of the sun during the winter time. So that's how I think that is what's going on. Also, I'm going to get into the different velocity, rotation, speed, the different velocities of the sidereal rotation of the celestial sphere and the solar rotation of the sun. Now, they will tell you there's an apparent difference, the heliocentrics, the heliocentrists. They will tell you there's an apparent different rotation because of how the Earth spins relative to the background of the stars as it's orbiting the sun in different positions away from the sun. But that's not true. There's actually, just how how they say there's an apparent retrograde motion to the planets when there actually is a literal retrograde within the concave Earth due to magnetism, there's also a literal difference in velocity between the celestial sphere and the sun. The celestial sphere is going slightly faster than the sun. 4 minutes faster. The sun is 24 hours. The celestial sphere is 23 hours and 56 minutes and 4 seconds or something like that. So going back here, there's an animation I made of the sun, of kettle drum shaped sun, looking at it initially from the front, and then I'm turning and panning. That's the vision I saw. Actually, the vision I saw was more front on or back on. It wasn't angled like that, but that's how I saw the sun. And makes sense. So you have this energy, this electric current. It's finishing the current, going from father to son. It's kind of interesting how we call the sun, and how we call the pyramid, or how I call the pyramid, the father of lights in James chapter 1, verse 17. So the function, the actual function of the Milky Way band now. Now you look here, okay, I have this labeled here. When the sun is at its highest, its crest in the summer solstice, it's going to start turning. Remember how they told you the tilt angle relative to the ecliptic? So the sun is going to start turning counterclockwise, going south now, as it passes through the Milky Way. The Milky Way steers it somehow. Must be like, what I think is this whole celestial sphere is pretty much dark and very thick clouds. The Bible says thick clouds of the sky, or dark water and thick clouds. And so I think that Milky Way band is a little bit thinner. That's why we see light coming through. And so there must be some kind of change with the thickness or the thinness of that light, and is changing the rotation of the sun slightly. It's just a bank angle, I guess you would call it, and it's starting to turn down like that. And so because of the different rotational speeds, the sun is a little bit slower. That's how the sun goes through the 12 constellations. Okay, you have the ecliptic here, and then you have the celestial equator. That's the green stripe, and then the white stripe is the 60-degree band of the Milky Way. It's a band. It's not a galaxy. It has a function. So when it gets down to the south during the winter solstice, it starts turning. The band causes the sun to turn up, back, clockwise again. So it's a governor. It has a purpose. It's a direction. It's everything works. Everything has function within the concave Earth. Yeah, it's once you understand, once you have that foundational understanding of the concave Earth, everything makes perfect sense. Almost everything, but that's the reality in which we live, guys. The Milky Way band. Stop calling it a galaxy. It's not a galaxy. The Milky Way band, the different velocities between the sidereal and the sun. It's not an apparent difference in velocity. It's real. The sun is electric. I recommend you watching a video by Donald Scott. Of course, he doesn't understand concave Earth, so he still has a couple problems with his understanding of the sun. But sun has a dark side. Watch that nova. There's a nova video about how they talk about the bullshit, how they talk about, oh, there's helioseismology going on in the core of the sun, and then there's convection going on. Well, no, Donald Scott talks about how there's a temperature minimum in the chromosphere. So you got the sun, you got the surface of the sun would be the photosphere, and then the chromosphere, and then the corona. And it doesn't work that way. He's talking about how a nuclear reactor doesn't work that way. There can't be a temperature decrease and then all of a sudden increase. But, and then of course, CMEs I think happen a lot slower within a concave Earth. I mean, they're talking they're saying they get really fast, like up to 1 million miles an hour. Well, that's because you're already thinking that the sun is 93 million miles away. It's not. So everything is within the Earth. Everything's happening. For our CMEs, it's happening slower. All right. That does it for this video. Yeah.
Yvette Estrada says, Joshua James Bolliero, I don't have enemies. I love you and respect you for it, although I do believe women should have the right to choose. All right, well, you little fucking baby murderer. When it's time for me to choose, it's to the fire with you. Okay? Because guess what? You're inside my earth, Yvette. And when I choose, you're going in the fire. You want to think killing little babies is cool? You want it to be your choice? Fine. It's going to be your choice when you end up in the fire. You will have chosen that for yourself. That's what I think of women having the choice. You want to choose whether life lives or dies? Okay. Well, just remember there's someone who chooses whether you live or die, Yvette. Yvette Estrada on Facebook. Huh? Yvette Estrada says, wow, someone hurt you. Yeah. Every mother that kills a baby hurts me. You're damn right. You stupid woman. Someone's going to choose whether you live or die. You stupid fool. How blind are these women? How brainwashed and programmed are these women? They feel they should have the right to choose whether an infant lives or dies. They think that's their choice. That's how egotistical and selfish women have become. No more. I'm going to start smacking you bitches around. This shit is over. This shit is over. You understand me? You think women should have the right to choose. Really? Well, guess what? Someone's going to choose whether you have the right to live. Yeah. What about the baby? Woman says, it's my body. I should decide. Really? Well, if it's your body and you decide, well, then kill yourself. That's your body. Because when you kill the baby that's inside of you, you're killing someone else's body. You're killing your own child's body. Do you realize how stupid you are? You're killing your own child's body. It's not your body to decide. That's called suicide. And you could just That's your body. That's your choice. If you want to choose whether you live or die, that's fine. Go ahead, make that choice. You're taking somebody else's life when you choose to kill your own baby that's inside of you. I can't believe we're having this conversation. How foolish, how stupid. You women have been given the gift of life. You can create life and you choose to kill it. Don't you understand how you're going to be judged after that? Are you... Hello? I'm sorry. I'm going to have to make a separate video for this. This is insane. This is supposed to be concave earth information. And this is a womb, okay? This is the womb, out of whose womb came the ice. So seeing the earth itself ought to remind you that we are all semen in a womb waiting to be born again. And for you people that want to kill babies and take life and say, well, it's my choice, it's my body. Well, guess what? You will not enter my kingdom. You will not be a part of my show. You lose. You're out. Game over. You chose incorrectly. You blame yourself.
So you have the simplicity of the concave Earth with the Milky Way swaddling band, Job 38, dividing the central celestial sphere into two separate magnetic polarization fields based upon the cosmic microwave background radiation dipole, and also based upon the so-called planetary nebula, those hourglass-shaped symmetrical nebula. They are all, see that axis right there? That central stem? It's all running perpendicularly to the Milky Way galactic plane. It's right there in scripture, guys. These things are minuscule, and they're showing evidence that the Milky Way band divides the central celestial sphere into two separate magnetic fluxes, so to speak, which actually steers the sun. When the sun goes across that band, the sun changes direction from 6 months in the summer to 6 months in the winter. It's right there, guys. Simple stuff. Simple stuff. So this just like completely shatters all the so-called cosmological mainstream research to the galaxy. It's all right there. It's in the concave, tiny, minuscule world. Welcome to reality. So as you can see here, as these nebulae are not to scale, obviously they're much larger, but the bipolar planetary nebula all are lined along the central Milky Way band, the swaddling band, the celestial sphere in the concave Earth. Their axes are perpendicular to the band. This has been discovered and confirmed by scientists. It's so easy, guys. So simple. I'm baffled. I don't know what to say. Why are these intelligent people so oblivious to this fact? Okay, the Milky Way band, the swaddling band around the central celestial literal sphere in the concave Earth, is causing these bipolar planetary nebula to split like that into the different two polarizing magnetic fluxes. Why? Why can't they see that?
One of the most remarkable types of objects observed in space is the bipolar planetary nebula. Today, a team of scientists is reporting an astonishing discovery. The axes of bipolar nebulae within the Milky Way's central bulge are aligned perpendicular to the plane of the galaxy.
No way.
The lead author of the study states, "This really is a surprising find, and if it holds true, a very important one."
Yeah, I think it's a little bit important.
The alignment we're seeing for these bipolar nebulae indicates something bizarre about star systems within the central bulge.
Yeah,
What does this discovery tell us about the nature of planetary nebulae?
We've all seen those beautiful images of planetary nebulae, the hourglass-shaped objects that have been seen and photographed very successfully through the Hubble Space Telescope and other large new telescopes. The more detail it's seen, of course, the more puzzles have arisen. But the greatest puzzle of all has just arrived in the news that it's been discovered that these hourglass shapes in the central bulge of our galaxy all have, if you like, the stems of the hourglass all facing in the plane of the galaxy. And this is not to be expected if these shapes are caused by the star itself and any objects that happen to be orbiting that star.
But it is to be expected if there is a division band that separates the magnetic fluxes and polarizes the fluxes. This band stares at the sun, and when the sun goes through this band every 6 months. Simple. Concave theory wins. Okay? Hands down. Welcome to reality, people.
Okay, I've been asked about how the horizon works within the concave Earth. I told you before, light bends. It's been proven to bend. There's been experimentation on light bending. And what I think is happening is we have this phi ratio curve extending from the observer like that. Okay, this is an assumption, but I think it's very possible since phi, the golden ratios throughout nature. So I just do this comparison and contrast between a concave Earth and a convex Earth. If we're standing on a convex Earth and we see light being straight, we see the sun over here. However, that's not the case. We're in the Earth, so basically the sun flips its orientation on us. And so what we think is the top of the sun when it rises like that is actually the bottom of the sun. The moon here is a little bit closer to us, and so it would start a little bit later. However, because the moon is slower in the sky, 25 hours to go around as opposed to the sun going 24 hours, it would take about the same amount of time from moonrise to moonset as opposed to from sunrise to sunset. There's also an atmospheric refraction bulge that's created. That's why we see ships sinking in the distance. It's actually just an illusion. However, because we have this bulge, that creates an edge for us. So that creates a threshold. That's why we see a literal horizon. And so this threshold extends all the way up like that. So that's the clipping point. So this blue line would be the clipping point when the sun and the moon start. And the horizon starts like that, extends up like that. Going over here, we can actually assume the distance of the sun away from us, if this curve is the correct curve, based on knowing that we know the diameter of the Earth, which would be 7,918 miles. So if we just calculate that distance, the radius, 3959, this intersecting point of the sun would be 2106, 2,106 miles, which was I actually initially thought. Yeah. I said, that sun's probably about 2,000 miles away. So if that's the case, that's what it would be. And the diameter of the celestial sphere would be 1853 times 2, which is 3706. Also, the sun, I told you before about the darkness funnel, which creates over here on the opposite side. I would have to assume that the sunlight is a little bit sagging a little bit, because I don't think the funnel is way over here. I actually think it's a bit lower. And so that's where that funnel would go. But that's what's really going on, guys. Light is bending up like that. Proven to bend, it does bend. Also, the visibility of stars beyond the pole axis, like if you're standing on the equator and you see those time-lapsed star trail photography footage, you will see beyond the pole star. And so if this light is bending up like that, this clipping point, you're going to see beyond the pole star, because this blue line would be the pole star axis. And so you're seeing beyond that. It all makes sense within the concave Earth. It's a masterful deception and illusion, but that's what's really going on. Also, like sometimes you will see the sun, they call this superior mirage. You'll see that horizontal crease. There's like a division line where the sun's going down and then it gets clipped at this line and then it rises up again. They say that's due to the temperature of the air difference, but I have a feeling it's caused by the glass sky. This refraction that's going on, it's creating this horizontal crease. I made a previous video about that. So there you go. That's how the horizon works. This is reality. Talk to you later.
Hi guys, this is a follow-up video to the previous video where I was demonstrating to that gentleman that how we can see the Southern Cross and not have our telescopes pointing directly up. And so I was taking it a little bit further here, and this really is a good guide to help you realize from whatever location you are in the Earth. Okay, see how I have this pole going right to my location here in South Padre Island, Texas, where this becomes the zenith point of the sky. Okay, so this blue area is just the viewing area that you would see from that perspective, from that vantage point. Okay, and so with the celestial sphere spinning counterclockwise behind it, and with these lines here showing, it's giving you, if you look at this axis here and this axis here, that becomes your cardinal directions. Okay, if I can get that straight. There we go, like that. So we have north, we have east, we have south, and we have west, right? Or actually, no, it's the reverse. I'm sorry. So this is the east. That's the north. I'm sorry. That's the west. That's the west. That's the north. Did I say west? Okay. East. East is this way. Okay. And west is this way. I'm sorry. I get confused sometimes. I'm sure you do too. Especially when viewing through this now. But okay. So north is there and south is over there. And as you can see, the spinning ball behind it, it has these contour lines, and they're curving up like that. Okay, now what happens in the northern hemisphere is, for the most part, if you're further up north, above the Tropic of Cancer, you're going to see the sun rising slightly northward. You know, it's not directly straight east, but it's going to come a little bit higher, a little bit more north. It's going to arc in the sky like that. So this is our arc in the sky, but it's in reverse. Instead of appearing like a dome above you, it's showing it as a convex ceiling, the reality of the situation. So the sun rises in the east, slightly north, arcs down, gets to the zenith point, so it's getting more south during the day, right? And then it's going to arc back up, and it's going to arc and set in the northwest. So northeast, zenith, northwest. So this is a really good guide to help you understand what's really going on in the sky and how we see the sun, how we see the arc of the sun throughout the day from whatever latitude you're at. Okay? Thanks for watching.
All right, so I was gonna stream compilation 1 and 2, but I think I might do that in a different live stream. I'll just do 1 and 2 in the next one, and then I'll do this documentary in a different one, and that'll be that. Liberty to why am I not? Okay. All right. I'll add a comment. There we go. Oh, I'm on my flat pool channel. Oops. Whatever. I forgot that I use this channel sometime. My Zenith Atlas can't live stream right now, so I got to use this one.
We see that. We realize that, we see it's an octahedral shape of the sun in the middle there.
We don't need that part anymore. I'm just going to play some tunes, chill out a little bit. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe I'll check. See if YouTube will admit anybody's watching. But I'll check here. I don't know. I don't know if there's even anybody in the chat. Hi, Melissa. Hi, Kitty. Loves wheat. Lee Redpath. Lee Redpath stopped in. Oh, he stopped in for some laughs because he's a dumbass. He probably thinks the earth is flat. Let's go check out Lee Redpath. Let's see what Lee Redpath is all about. Flat Earth, blah blah. Does he? Lee Redpath, do you have any of your own videos? He does. Okay, Dad comes. Lunar eclipse. Why the moon not full? Crepuscular rays, sundogs, halos. All right, so Lee Redpath looks like a flat earther who just kind of like got stuck and stagnant and didn't research shit. So, whatever. He's just going to drop in for some laughs. That's cool. Melissa says, what's happening, brother? Well, a lot of good things happening, good and bad things. What's happening with you? How are you? Yeah, anybody who wants to join the panel can hop on if you want. Just let me know in the chat. You can say hi, what's up? There's all kinds of interesting things to talk about. Yes. Flat earthers will tell me, oh, look, you can have two celestial poles on a flat earth, except Polaris is supposed to be over here. Is this one Polaris or is this one Polaris? Which one is it, you silly flat earthers? Because I was one of you, silly. And I'm like, I even like, well, David Weiss answered it. Dave Weiss. Flat Earth Podcast. Just totally running away. Totally just running away from the truth, just trying to market all this bullshit. Yeah. There's real researchers that will kind of pick this thing apart. And so what I've been showing is all this concave Earth information, basically the one presented LSC model, which I think is a much better model and actually makes sense against the flat or heliocentric models. But there could be more things to learn. There could be other things about this concave Earth model to learn, the way lights work. Maybe the celestial sphere, the moon, and the sun aren't what we think they are inside the concave Earth. I don't know. Maybe Steve has it right. Maybe he doesn't. But we obviously live in a concave Earth. So yeah, I implore you guys to do your own research. And there's better researchers than me. All I'm doing is compiling information and sharing it. So, let's see. Oh, Sam's live too. Let's check this out.
Sorry. For me, we're in a world where women don't even have my advice to you, pick your man and believe him, listen to him. Pick Tyler, pick me, pick Jesus, go direct to God, but you're in a man's world, created male. Eve came out of Adam, and when women kind of argue with men, but if you're arguing with a guy that's no Testament, fair enough. But I believe another thing where, for example, Gemini is a Luciferian, and he's basically telling everyone that Lucifer is the Holy Spirit or Mother of God or whatever, tangling Lucifer into the Trinity and all this stuff. And it's all got its psychological connotations and consequences, what it means and stuff. Father God's real. We all need to stop sinning. We all need to be part of this family of God where we accept.
Because I'm going to call you out on your shit, woman.
Everybody not doing it. It's like they're going to go to hell. And they're dragging everyone else to hell. That's this.
Hell is on earth.
It's not.
Okay.
That's just another
Oh, hell is on earth. Right.
Heaven
Hell is on earth.
Ah,
here we go.
Between.
Really?
We can access.
Where's the lake of fire, Holly? Where's the lake of fire on the Earth's surface? Show it to us. Hell is on
Once you
earth.
get shoved in the outer dark, or you perish in hell, however Jesus says.
Okay, let me ask you something. Have you looked into like MK Ultra and all the celebrities trying to sell their souls?
Yeah. How do you think they sell the soul? They're obviously selling the soul to a bad side. Well, what's the good side?
Right, but what's the bad side doing to that soul? That's where reincarnation comes in, because they're holding on to that soul and putting that soul into whatever place they want it to be, and they still have control over that body. Cloning's real. You know, I believe in all of that. And they're holding on to those people's souls that sell their soul. So if you're not selling your soul, you're not going to Satan. You're not going to hell. The hell is on earth because you're not able to control your soul. Okay? I'm not selling my soul. I'm going to have control over this. I'm not going to hell. Okay? Hell is for people that don't want anything good for people. And I'm not, you know, I don't worry too much about what other people are doing. You know, as long as they're happy, that's fine. I don't care. You know, they say you only live once, but that's not true.
So you don't worry about too much about anybody else. As long as you're happy, you're fine, right? Yeah. All right. I think we've seen enough of that. As long as you're happy, you're fine, right, Holly? Okay. As long as you're happy. Yeah. I got you loud and clear. Psycho. See, that's why flat earth exists, is to keep psychos like that out of there. You know, now we understand why the truth was hidden from us, because not everybody deserves it. The truth should have to be sought. But that can only last for so long. Eventually, the truth has to come out, and the wheat and the chaff has to be divided. And that's why I'm here. That's why I'm here. I'm here to give everybody the truth. And if everybody's not ready for that, well, then somebody stop me. Somebody stop me. Because I'm not going to stop. Not going to stop. You can try all you want. You can make all kinds of threats all you want. It's not going to matter. It's not going to help you. It's not going to save you. Your threats aren't going to save you. Only repentance will save you. Repentance. Okay? Repent. Making excuses, telling everyone how selfish you are, that's not going to help you. Not going to help you at all. So, alrighty. Wow. All right. So when liquid is confined in a tube, its surface meniscus has a concave shape because water wets the surface and creeps up the side. Excuse me. Mercury does not wet glass. The cohesive forces within the drops are stronger than the adhesive forces between the drops and glass. So, mercury is convex. Water is concave. So if 70% of the Earth is water, Eric Dubay, then what shape is the Earth? I'll say that again. Mercury is convex. Water is concave. So if 70% of the Earth is water, then what shape is the Earth, Eric Dubay? Hmm? I'll give you a clue. It's not convex. All right. Okay. So just there's more flat Earth proof right there. wait, let's look at Kansas for some more flat Earth proof, right? Okay. So I think what I am going to do is I'm going to think what I might do is kill this live stream and then just start the next one doing the other two videos. So that's what I'm going to do. All right. Catch y'all later.